Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into Hoopsville Live from the Hoopsville Studios, presented by D3Hoops.com. I'm your host, Dave McHugh. Welcome in to another show. We are at midway point, believe it or not, for most teams. They have played about half their regular season games. So we've got the rest of the regular season and conference playoffs still ahead. Believe it or not, in 6 weeks' time, we will be talking about who's in and who's out of the NCAA tournament, who may be in and out of those tournaments. If you got questions for us, you can always tweet us at D3Hoopsville. You can join us on Instagram there as well as Threads. We use those. We don't tend to interact with those live on air. It's a little bit more difficult. You can also join us on Facebook or simulcasting the show, facebook.com/Hoopsville, youtube.com/D3Hoopsville. Live simulcasting in both those locations. Love to have you. Don't hesitate. We will try and interact with you as well. I clicked on a different way of getting into the Facebook one, so I'm not sure if it's working or not. By the way, if you're also going by D3Hoops.com, we're simulcasting there on Facebook. We're most certainly on YouTube as well, so we're there. You can chat with us on our chat stream there, so don't hesitate either. Et cetera, et cetera. So there you go. You can also email us, hoopsville at d3sports.com. That's hoopsville at d3sports.com. Information, if you're watching us, is on the bottom of your screen. Our email address, I notice, has a couple of extra ats in it, so we'll clean that up at the very least. But please don't hesitate to, or I'll try to, don't hesitate to interact. All right, so last show, I hinted at this a few times. It finally broke Friday morning. I know Bob Quillman was hinting at this on Thursday, which is what made me want to release the information, but I wanted to get a couple ducks in a row prior and some coordination done. But John Carroll is headed to the NCAC, the North Coast Athletic Conference, leaving the OAC effective the fall of 2025. It has not been announced by the school and or conferences, but I am told by my sources that it's done. In fact, that some schedules have even started to have JCU put in them for the NCAC. The convention is this week, which, by the way, we'll talk about later in the program. The convention is this week. And so that being the situation, as it were, is probably the biggest reason the announcement was expected. I was told it would come before the convention. It sounds like that is not what is taking place now. Doesn't really matter, but we're told that that's what's happening, and so that's what we're told is happening. I don't think it's going to be the end of the moves that we see in Division III. I'll say, well, let me go back to this first. First time since I forgot who it was. Left in the late 90s from the OAC. They have not had a lot of movement. Of course, remember the NCAC lost Allegheny a few years ago, and I was told that at that point presidents wanted to look into replacing Allegheny and maybe then some. At the time, a couple of names were floated. I did some hard work on that, and that turned out to not be going anywhere. John Carroll was not the only school I've heard mentioned. I know this has been around the rumor mills as well. There's a couple other schools that have been mentioned. I'll say this much. I think one of them has been floated out on the internet webs. The other one I don't remember reading. My read on it right now is there's nothing to report. Doesn't mean it may not be happening, but just can't get anywhere with it. It also may have been that John Carroll was going to be the first to be announced. Technically, these don't have to be announced until June at the latest to be effect for 2025 for the 2-year time frame. It's helpful ahead of the convention. That's why we do get some of those. In fact, I was chasing a completely unrelated story today that doesn't seem to have any legs, but maybe it has a little thread. We're going to get John Carroll. There were rumors why they were leaving. I think some people have seen this, that there may be some instability in the OAC in terms of the future of some of those schools. That's going to be a conversation in almost every conference in Division III, the future of schools. I don't want to say every single conference in Division III will be affected by closures or buyouts or whatever of Division III institutions, because first off, that means at least at minimum 40 schools will have closed. And I've talked to some, and that number may be realistic. I've talked to others, and that number seems way too high. But at the same time, I don't see any schools in the UAA closing, for example. Now, they may leave the UAA because they want to cut down on costs, and That is not even speculation. That's just a what if. If a school would leave the UAA. But again, I don't see schools leaving the UAA or closing in the UAA. I don't see schools necessarily closing in the WIAC at this point. I don't really think any schools in the NESCAC would close, or even the NUMAC. So there's a good chunk of school or conferences that are not going to be touched by this, but there's other conferences that are going to see quite a few. I've not read the article out of the United East, remember, who just is bringing Brandywine as their 18th member next season, assuming they get through their exploratory year officially here coming up. And from what I'm gathering, remember the UEC merged with the CSAC in basically an effort to avoid any closures in the future. UEC is spinning it, and I have not read the full article or the interview. UEC is spinning that as if that's the wave of the future in Division III and that they're ahead of the curve. I'm not sure what curve they're ahead of, other than maybe getting ahead of potential closures and shutdowns. And so conferences there may be one or two other conferences or one or two other scenarios where conferences merge to create a bigger conference to avoid that or to deal with that. I don't know. We lost the NEAC. It became the UEC. The NECC. We lost the NECC because members left to go to other conferences. Maybe there's a merger somewhere, but I don't see it right now. I think you ran into a particular scenario that worked. There is one other that could, and my camera just froze, and I had a feeling that was coming. So we'll deal with that here as I talk. But we saw the potential issues with the ASC. They're not potential. The flat out issues that they have, going down to essentially 5 members now. They're not there at this time, but they will be, I think, as soon as next year. And so they need to find some solutions real fast. It is basically the 4 members of the Baptist group, depending on who you talk to. They have different versions of that. I heard Baptist Brothers today. And then there's other options. And by the way, we're about to fix this camera and be back up and running here. So my point being is that the ASC needs a home. They need to figure that out. And so where is that is the question. Who is that going to be? And maybe it's a merger with the Capital Athletic Conference. I wouldn't call that, in my opinion, necessarily sorry. There we go. I have the audio back. I wouldn't necessarily call that the same as the UEC situation, but there's a very good chance the Capital Athletic Conference, or the old Capital Athletic Conference, the C2C, and the sorry, we're moving cameras here, and the ASC merge in some way to try and alleviate the issues that everybody's having in that conference, in those conferences. How that develops, we'll see. But there's not a lot of others out there. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll see how that develops. Again, John Carroll's heading the NCAC. That's what I am told, ahead of 2025. We'll wait for the official announcement on that somewhere in the future. And we'll see how it plays out. New top 25s out in men's basketball. We'll be talking about that shortly here with Matt Snyder and Mike Rejniak. We'll also be talking to Trine men's basketball. Brooks Miller will be joining us on the show. Hardins-Simmons women's basketball coach Kendra Whitehead will be joining us. Then Millsaps women's basketball Justin LeBlanc will be joining us. And then we'll switch back to men's basketball to talk Endicott. And we'll be talking to Kevin Bettencourt about that. So that's still ahead on this show. We'll be going here shortly to a break to bring in the guys to talk top 25. We'll do our first dubious deep dive and debatable selections. We'll even talk about the new number ones, or the new number one, not the new number one voting. We should point out Guilford moved up to number 2. Hampton-Sydney stayed at 1 and picked up 2 first-place votes. Calvin moved up from 4 to 3. NYU up from 6 to 4. Case Western fell from 2 to 5. Trinity, Connecticut, and Trinity, Texas are 6 and 7, both moving up respectively. John Carroll is up a slot. Whitewater's up 2. Oswego stayed where they are. Trine's up a spot. Mount Union's up 2 to 12. Keene stays at 13. Tufts fell from 5 to 14. Elmhurst moved up 2 to 15. Platteville moved up 3 to 16. Randolph-Macon jumped 6 to 17. Dubuque jumped 6 to 18. Wash U fell 3 to 19. They lost to U Chicago this weekend. Virginia Wesleyan fell 2 spots after losing to Ferrum in conference play. Cal Lutheran's into the poll at 21. Widener fell after their loss to Hood from 15 to 22. Emory moved up a slot to 22. Redlands fell down to 24 from 21, and Catholic's back in the poll at 25. Still waiting for the women's poll, and as soon as we get it, we will certainly announce it here as well. But again, coming up, so a couple of things. We'll talk to Snyder and Rejniak here in a moment about the top 25. Then we've got Trine, Hardins-Simmons, Millsaps, and Endicott. And at the end of the show, we'll wrap up some other news that's going on around Division III, and we'll talk about the upcoming convention here. Not going to dive in deep on the convention, but we'll talk about a couple of things that'll be voted on out there in Phoenix, I believe, is where the convention is. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from our studios. And we got plenty more ahead. Take a break, talk all about it. Back after this. The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC 1927. That's NABC.com or NABC 1927 on social media.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
If I lose, I'll respond with respect.
If I win, I'll back it up with humility.
If I fail, I'll rise up with honor. It's tough for us to put it all on the line.
Don't undo my hard work with poor sportsmanship.
Respect It's the name of the game.
Coach of the Year, Administrator of the Year, All-America Team, Wade Trophy. The WBCA doesn't just honor coaches, but players, administrators, and much more. The WBCA strives to honor those who have contributed to the advancement of women's basketball. Celebrate the present, honor the past, look to the future.
Welcome back, everybody. Still typing here. I'll get to the rest of that in a moment. If you got any questions for us, you can join us on email, hoopsville@d3sports.com. We're also on social media, almost all of them at D3Hoopsville. Facebook's the exception. That's just Hoopsville. Also on YouTube at D3Hoopsville. We're simulcasting on Hoopsville and D3 Hoops' Facebook accounts. Also simulcasting on YouTube. Daryl Duncan, multitasking right now. My Washington Huskies are playing for a national football title and listening to my favorite D3 basketball show. Keep up the good work, Dave. Thanks, Daryl. There's one other who's going to be multitasking here in a bit who does not have the same opinion as you, Daryl. The new top 25 is out, and not a ton of changes as we quickly read through, but a few new first place votes for a few voters, including myself. So we'll go to our panel for the second time officially this season, but the first time we're going to dive into our usual three topics. Matt Snyder and Mike Rejniak join us on the Hoopsville hotline. And just for the record, Daryl, the man on your right, if you're looking at the screen, Mr. Matt Snyder, does not believe in your Washington Huskies at all. He's got the maize and blue of the Wolverines. It's about the only time we allow him to have any D1 conversation whatsoever, and we're not even going to talk that much about it. But I promised him we would do this segment, get it out of the way so he could go enjoy the national title game, which isn't even an NCAA championship. Don't get me started on the ridiculousness of it all. I don't even have a team in the race because I just don't care. But anyway, I digress. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Good to see you, Dave.
Glad to be here, Dave. Thanks.
I don't think you are glad to be here, but we'll let you. We'll take the word for, anyway. Gentlemen, I will start with the new number with number one. Hampden-Sydney's the number one team in all of the land in this poll. I'm trying to think. I believe I forgot to look this up. I believe I have voted for a different number one team in every single poll so far. Now I might be forgetting one where I went back to back. And unfortunately, I'm not going to call it up all that easy. I have a feeling like maybe between week 1 and 2 or 2 and 3, maybe. But I was on Oswego last week. I had to leave them. I have been on others previously. I'm curious where you guys voted. Matt, we'll start with you. Where's your number one vote?
Yeah, right now I'm a Hampden-Sydney voter. So I think I'm agreeing maybe with the majority of the voters in that. I think they played a great schedule. They have great wins. One at Randolph-Macon, at John Carroll. They've beaten Widener. They've beaten Christopher Newport. I know they have a loss to Guilford, one blemish here. A lot of teams have a blemish at this point, and I just don't see a lot of other teams being able to match the quality of wins for Hampden-Sydney. So I think preseason Christopher Newport, and I've been a Guilford voter and now a Hampden-Sydney voter throughout the year.
Certainly reasonable. I went to Hampden-Sydney this week, and the only reason I didn't go in the last week is because I saw Case Western. And I'll admit, I was a hair close to keeping it at Case Western, despite the loss. To your point, everyone's got a blemish at this point. But I kind of leaned on, okay, their blemish to Carnegie Mellon doesn't compare to Hampden-Sydney's blemish to Guilford. So that's where I kind of flipped it. Mike, where are you at?
Well, I'm with you. I think I've voted for 4 different number ones, and we're in week 5. And I think I'm a Guilford guy right now. And I voted for them. I think they're my only repeat number one. I think I voted for Hampden-Sydney, and then I didn't after the Guilford loss or something like that, some situation. But like, I really like how they're playing as well. Kind of very similar to Matt. Like, they're holding teams under 60 points, which is very hard to do. They have a solid rotation of 7 to 8 guys. So roles are pretty much established. They have a stud in Dearman who's been averaging 20 plus a game. So I really kind of like where they're at. Their losses to Shenandoah, which I got them voted last week, and then I took them out this week. And I think like their one law, like, you know, that was a trap game because it was December 19th. So it's right before you go on holiday break. It was on the road, so I'm kind of giving them a pass there with their blemish, but a lot of it will tell pretty much, I think, next week. I think they play Randolph-Macon. I think they play Virginia Wesleyan and then Washington Lee. And I think maybe Randolph might be the first start of that 4-game stretch, but I'm going to kind of figure out if they're really who they are, which I think they are, but I've been wrong a lot this year. So I feel like we're going to be able to tell a lot of these teams where they are. We're going to really start to separate, especially now we enter in the heart of conference play.
To answer the question, I looked it up real quick. The email actually was a little easier to find it than I thought. I was Christopher Newport at the start of the season. Then I went to Whitewater. Then I switched to Oswego, and I did repeat Oswego. Then I went to Case Western and Hampden-Sydney. So I did have one repeat in there. But all right, so that's our number ones. And listen, again, 21st place votes are going towards Hampden-Sydney so far, and a smattering of others as well. So certainly well-deserved. Hey, let's talk debatable. For anybody out there, this is just a team that the guys want to bring up to debate their positioning, whether they think they're too high, too low, should be in, shouldn't be, doesn't matter. It's just one they want to debate, get it out there. Mike, we'll start with you. Give us your quick thought on your debatable team, sir.
I'm going to go with Whitewater. And they've been kind of, with us as a voting panel, I've seen them as high. I think a couple people have put them as 1. I could be wrong. And they've been going all the way to like 14 or 15. I think I'm having them slotted around like 4 or maybe 3 this week. I think they had a loss to Carthage. They're 12-1. But that was, that loss was after Turkey Day. They have a good win versus Oshkosh, Hope. I really kind of like how they're playing. The schedule, it's really tough to decide like exactly how good they are. I think with several teams, we can have that argument. I think, to be honest, like the one that is really I'm keying in on is that game on the 17th they play versus Wisconsin-Platteville. I think that's going to be a really good one to kind of get a barometer reading. But really they have 4 guys averaging double. Barnstable and this guy, Chris Holm, is 17 and 16 points a game, balanced minutes. They have the makings of kind of that deep run type of team. I'm right now, I think as a voters, like we could go, hey, we slot them in top 4, top 5, or they could be middle of the pack, top 25. It's kind of very interesting to see how that's been shaking out the last couple of weeks, because really they're one of those teams with only 1 blemish. How good are they?
No, yeah, interesting point. Just for the record, I've got them 8 now. They floated up there. They were at 10. I kind of, and someone asked me today, is the men's WIAC maybe a little bit, sorry, I got a stream starting in the background. Is the WIAC men a little bit down this year, and down figuratively speaking, comparative to what we're used to? That's not a knock on the WIAC in any shape or form. But you're right. I great points. Snyder, what you got?
My debatable team is Trinity, Connecticut. This is a team I voted for number 4, so I'm quite high on them. I'm a believer in them, but I don't think I think maybe similar to Whitewater, people have them all over the board, and for some similar reasons, maybe even a more extreme example, they haven't really played almost anyone yet. Pretty good win over St. Joseph, Connecticut. They're not the elite opponent that maybe they were the last couple of years. So that's a good win. It's not like an elite win, but it's a good win. But other than that, we really haven't seen them play like top 100 type of teams very much. I really would like to see them, get through the heart of NESCAC play. Unfortunately, the single round robin, I would love to see like, what do they do against Williams twice and Tufts twice? We're not going to be able to see that. But we don't really know a whole lot about Trinity, Connecticut. They're 15 games in. They're 15-0. Like I said, I have them at number 4, but every week I get to the Trinity spot, I debate with myself, do I know enough about this team to put them that high? And I keep doing it, so I think I do believe in them. But that's the debate I have with myself with Trinity, Connecticut. And it's probably a similar debate we're having with Whitewater, too. Like, right, we haven't seen, Whitewater's had a better schedule. It's maybe not an elite schedule, though, at this point. So it's tough to know exactly what do we make of these teams.
I agree.
And I'm kind of in the same boat with Trinity.
Yeah.
Like literally, like I had them on my when we were kind of talking that roundtable beginning of the year, like NESCAC was kind of on my radar. They were on my radar. And I kind of every week I go through my ballot and I'm like, well, where do I put them now? And they, to their credit, they've taken care of business and taken care of it the right way when they should. Right. They haven't had close games with people they shouldn't have. They've been defensively, everything that I've seen, Coach Cosgrove's got them typical Coach Cosgrove team, very tough, very aggressive type of team. But like I said, like NESCAC single round, it's going to be very tough to kind of get a barometer reading. But they got Williams, they got Wesleyan, they got I think Conn College is the sleeper of that conference right now, so that's going to be very interesting. Williams, I think, has dealt with some injuries, so it's going to be interesting. I'm right there with you. I think they're in the same boat with me with Wisconsin Whitewater, to be honest. Great team, but how good are they?
I've got them at 9. I could arguably bring them down. I agree. I want to see a little bit more from them. But it's also great to see some new blood in the NESCAC. Tufts, Trinity, Conn College with a big win over Tufts. I agree. It's fun to see, and I'm looking forward to see how it play out. But, man, double round robin would be nice. I don't think we're going to get it anytime soon, but, you never know. You get rumors every once in a while. You hear. Anyway, I digress. Let's move on. Let's talk dubious. This time around, it's a team that these guys think maybe just a bit too high in their opinion. Doesn't mean that they're right. They're just throwing it out there as a dubious choice. Snyder, we'll start with you on this. Who is your dubious choice of a top 25 team?
Yeah, so my dubious choice is, maybe I'm pointing the finger at myself here. It's a team that only got 1 point in the poll, and that was from me. So it was Mary Washington. I voted for Mary Washington, but I was thinking about this, and I'm like, should I have voted Mary Washington number 25? I think they're 9-5. They have 5 losses. Yeah. They've played a really good schedule, though, and they've been competitive in some of those games. But like Guilford and Randolph-Macon and some of the strong teams in Virginia, they haven't quite overcome. I think Catholic, they had a really close loss too as well. They do have some good wins, though. They've beaten Hood. I think that was on the road even. They've beaten Maryville. They've beaten Franklin and Marshall. So they've played a really strong schedule. They've been competitive in a bunch of these games. They haven't always won them all. But I felt like maybe there was enough there that I think maybe Mary Washington is a really good team. But I don't know. Is it, again, the dubious, I'm pointing the finger at myself. Is that too many losses to overcome at this point in the season to have the consideration? But I look at that like, you're competitive with Guilford, you're competitive with Catholic, you're competitive with Emory. These are teams I'm putting in my poll. So does that mean you're right there with them? And I pulled the trigger on them this week. But maybe I shouldn't have. I don't know.
I've looked at them on several occasions, but it's great to be competitive. I think it's another to win. And I think that's where I've been with them. Actually, to be honest with you, that's kind of where I fell with Emory. Emory's got some good results, but they've got a couple of losses where I'm like, I had you earlier. I can't right now. This doesn't, it feels like a good team, but man, if this was 5-10 years ago, maybe you overlook some of those things because you're trying to fill in your top 25. Nowadays, not so much. Mike, who's your dubious team?
You just said it, Emory. I didn't vote for them in this week's poll after their loss at Rochester. They're still ranked. In my opinion, I think the Mary Washington victory, that's a solid one. But it's, to be honest, their best win is an overtime loss to Guilford. And I think this is where their out of conference schedule, for whatever it is, it wasn't what it was. Like Bates and Colby, they're typically on the weaker side of the NESCAC this year.
And had been good, but not as much anymore.
Not as much anymore, exactly. And they've lost 2 out of 3 since the winter break. And now you're going into WashU, at Chicago, Case, and then I think it's Carnegie Mellon after that. And this is where I just think that there's something missing there when I watch them. They're just not where I think some of the voters and myself included, are we going against Emory's of years past, or are we going with the current Emory team? Because right now, this current Emory team, I think is close, but like the saying goes, no cigar, in my opinion. And I think like that's where they're following me. I don't believe they've earned enough to be ranked right now in the top 25.
I didn't mean to step on your toes, but the loss to Rochester is what's sticking with me, because I went and saw Rochester at Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
I was not blown away. And granted, it's not fair to those two teams. I had just come from the D3Hoops.com Classic.
Mm-hmm.
I had seen Case Western and Trinity, Texas, and Clark, and some of these others. And so, in my opinion, I knew what kind of high-end basketball was looking like. Even Hopkins didn't blow me away, and they ended up absolutely smoking Rochester in the second half. Rochester hit 2 free throws in a span of 7.5 minutes. That was it. And they didn't even come in the same free throw visit. It was 1 for 2 visits. So if I'm looking at Emory, and I know it's a tough trip up to Rochester, I get that. But that's a point where you need to win that, because you don't need to be relying on the home game. And as you said, Mary Wash, Chicago, Case, and Carnegie in whatever order in the next 4. Ooh. We were talking about with the women's coach, and that's going to be tough on the men's side.
And I think like that's where last year the UAA was like this unstoppable juggernaut conference. Like we voted like 7 of them.
I think we expected that this year.
And I think, to be honest, the ODAC has taken their place. I think the ODAC is an absolute, like overall just juggernaut.
Ferrum is beating Virginia Wesleyan. Shenandoah, yes, 2 losses, but they're in the mix. I mean, we can go down a long list of ODAC teams before we run out. Even
UAA is very good.
WNL is a tough team.
UAA is certainly very good this year, but I think
yes.
You're right. The ODAC is the conference we thought the UAA was going to be this year.
Yes,
that
said.
Maybe number 1 elite team.
Yeah, well said. And maybe we overthought UAA. And we should point out, by the way, Chicago's doing pretty darn well. So we may be looking at this in a weird prism. NYU looks pretty good. Wash U looks pretty good. Chicago looks to be back in the conversation. Case Western, despite the loss to Carnegie, is a darn good team. Maybe Carnegie's in this. So maybe we need another week to finally see them into conference play to truly evaluate it. But the ODAC is so ridiculous. It's interesting in that comparison. The ODAC's probably got 8 teams that are going to not be top 25 teams, but are going to be in the conversation. It's unless Hampton-Sydney can somehow distance themselves like Randolph-Macon has done in the past, that conference is going to be bonkers. I'm having trouble not inviting more guests on this show from the ODAC because it is so darn good. I'd love to get Ferrum on. I'd love to get others on, but we've talked to already 3 of them. So yeah, it's absolutely. Anything else on that before the last topic? Very good. We'll move on. It's now deep dive time, and this is a team that maybe isn't getting enough attention even from our own ballots. That has certainly been the case in the past. Maybe we're talking about somebody we're considering but not voting for. Mike, we'll start with you.
What does my boys from Hood need to do to get to be ranked? Like, I mean, they've done everything. I mean, like, as Bob Quillman says, like, he had a good hashtag today, hashtag Hood is good. And I wanted to have a different hashtag, but to be honest, like, I couldn't find a word that rhymes with Hood as much. But like, to be honest, like, we're talking about they're 10-2. They've won 5 in a row. They've beaten Catholic, which is ranked. They've beaten Cal Lutheran, which is ranked in this pool. They've beaten Widener by 25, which is ranked. They've lost to Stevens, which I have ranked because I think that they're good. They lost to Mary Washington. We already just talked to them. So 85 points a game, 18 assists, 11 steals, 4 guys in double digits. We can go on and on. I mean, but what do they have to do to get ranked? Because those guys have scheduled hard enough. I think they've earned the right to kind of be in the conversation. Because kind of very similar to like an Emory, if I watch both teams right now, I would love to see a Hood and Emory matchup because I think Hood might be coming out ahead of that because I just think they're kind of going in the right direction. I've watched them play a couple times. I like kind of their style, but I'm on the Hood train. Hoodsy Cups for days. I'm with you.
Drive out to Frederick wouldn't be too hard for me. Matt, any thoughts on your end?
Yeah. I mean, this is one thing I've been talking about on D3 Datacast is this year's so interesting in that there's, I think, so many teams in the mix. Some years we're talking on your panels about like, well, please someone step up and take the numbers 23 through 25 spot on my ballot. There's a dozen or two teams that could be in this like 20 to 25 mix. So I think with Hood, there's 10 to 20 teams that have the same kind of resume. We talk like Mary Washington. It's not exactly shaped the same, but beaten similar teams, lost to similar types of teams in the mix. And there's just so many teams that voters have options to. That's one of the difficulties for me. I think last year it was trying to find a team to fill the spot. This year is of all these options, which ones am I going to pick? So maybe Hood's suffering from that a little bit, that there's so many kind of decent choices in there.
I last week sent Pat my my ballot because I couldn't, whatever, on my phone, be able to fill it in. And I sent it to him. And after I sent it to him, about 5-10 minutes later, I said, oh, shoot, I should have voted for X. And a moment later, I'm like, oh, I should have voted for Y. Like there were just, like, as I rethought it after I sent it, I'm like, oh, but then, and then like we ask this all the time with All-Americans and top 25, who do you remove? And it's not easy. And listen, you could probably poke holes in my lower third. But then, great. But I'm not going to be able to fill every one of them with a confidence. So am I going to replace Clark, who I think I've seen in person is a very good team? Am I going to replace them? Okay, sure. Let's replace him with Hood. Okay, but now I'm right back to the same conversation. Shouldn't Clark be in instead of Hood?
And I had that debate between Hood and Clark too. I was like, I really like Clark. Like it's like you said, like, whereas last year, I was like, please, somebody step up. And now this year, everybody has. And now I got like, I'm in the same where like literally 5 to 10 teams. I'm like, crap, I missed the boat on that one or on this one. But then I'm like, I can't leave that team out.
Other than Widener, Hood doesn't have a lot of challenges ahead of him. And so I'm going to have to watch those results a bit, see if they get suckered in, because Messiah's not good this year. I mean, they're better than they were at the start of the season, but they're not good. Stevenson's okay. Lev Val's out of that part of the conference now. This isn't a world beater free Commonwealth anymore. So we'll have to keep an eye on Hood, but I agree with you. I think Hood's a fascinating one. Matt, who's yours?
My deep dive is a team off the board a little bit. I'm not voting for them. I don't think we should be, but I want to watch them, and that's St. Norbert. They've got some good wins over WIAC schools like UW Oshkosh, UW Eau Claire. Good teams in themselves, but not top 25 teams. They've beaten Wisconsin Lutheran, who's probably their top competition in their conference right now. Their one confusing result was a loss in November to Illinois Tech. That's a bad loss, and that's probably keeping them out of contention right there. I think without that, they would be a team maybe in that similar type of a mix. Their two main losses are Calvin and Dubuque, and those completely make sense. Those are both teams in the top 20 of the ballot. So if it wasn't for maybe an Illinois Tech loss, I think we'd be seeing, I don't know, some votes for St. Norbert, but they'd definitely be in the mix. They'd definitely be on my radar. And they're a team I want to keep watching to see if they're putting up good results. Northern Athletics Conference is not the top competition in the country. So from here on out, I don't know that they'll get elite games, but they could put up a really good record in that conference. They could challenge that. They could be a team that would be difficult to face in March should they win the Pool A out of that league.
Yeah, good choice.
That's exactly it. They are exactly the type of team that we don't maybe rank until that end of year when they make that run in the tournament. They're exactly kind of the makeup of a team that really we're like, oh, well, no shock here, but like they're gonna surprise some people. I feel like if they come out of that conference, they're pretty darn talented. Trouble is, they got to run that conference. They have to.
Yeah. It's interesting. We said this a lot at the Classic with a team like Husson and some others. There are going to be a number of teams I don't think you want to see in the opening weekend. And St. Norbert may be in that list with Husson and some others because they're beasts. And in one game offs or you're not prepared for them, they're coming at you. Listen, Husson is a very good team. Clark is a very good team. Yeah. I believe full well St. Norbert is probably on par with them as well. Now, I've finally voted for Clark this week. It might seem strange with 3 losses, but come on. They lost by a shot to Trinity, Texas. And that made me think Trinity, Texas was in for a dogfight in their second game, and they went and blew out, what was it, Pomona Pitzer, right? There are some really good teams that we just can't vote for. And this is an example where we just named a bunch in this segment that we're not all voting for. Some of us are, but most, listen, I think other than number one, I would bet that we don't have a unanimous among any of those picks. Let me double check. Who are your three teams that you mentioned, Matt?
Trinity, Connecticut, we might all be voting for.
Yeah, we're probably voting for them.
Yep. And then Mary Washington, which I was the only voter for, in St. Norbert. So neither of those two.
There. Mike, who are your three?
Whitewater, I think we are all voting for them. Emory, I had as dubious. I didn't vote for them.
I did.
And I voted for Hood.
All right. So, basically we had two of the six, plus others that we mentioned. So, gents, as always, great time. Going to keep it tight because we got other things. Apparently a championship game that Matt wants to have on mute while he's listening to the show. That's the hint, Matt. Two quick things. I want to get your final words, but Matt, quick plug of your own show you guys put out. You always do this to me. You drive me nuts. You try and drag me into the regional conversations. You're killing me, Smalls. But quick plug of what you guys put out today.
Yeah, D3 Datacast on YouTube. This week's episode, we talked about what's looking like the top 3 teams in each of the 10 regions. Still a lot to play. I know you don't like talking about it this early, Dave, but just kind of a glimpse of maybe how these regions are shaping up. So yeah, that's what we talked about this week.
I just don't want to listen. I got so much brain power, sir. There's only so much brain power, and we can't be diving into something that I'm not ready for yet. That said, we are 5 weeks out from the top 16s.
Yeah.
So we're closing in. All right. With that, we'll go with final word or any final thoughts. Mike, we'll start with you. Any final thoughts before we let you go?
No, just really excited. Kind of like, when we talk about this, we're always excited, but like really these next couple weeks, like hopefully maybe we get some clarity. Hopefully teams start to separate themselves a little bit. I think kind of the waters are still very muck, ridden, and I'm really looking forward to seeing, Hood, eventually be top 10 by the end of the month, and then, but no, really
Dickman's
excited.
calling me, telling you to shut up.
All right, fair. It's like the kiss of death when I do that, and not for nothing, thanks for everything that you do. Thanks, Matt, for everything that you do with the D3 Datacast. I love watching, and we are D3 gear popping up soon, so get ready.
Absolutely, sir. We'll talk more about that down the road for sure. Snyder, final thought.
You just had me jealous talking about the good teams and the good games you saw in Vegas at the D3Hoops.com Classic. I need to find a way to get out there. I know more and more every year, coaches are trying to schedule those big games and get those cross-regional matchups. It's great for us as fans to see, so I love it. Great tournament, great event. Jealous that you get to be a part of it. I got to get out there and see that because that's fantastic for D3 basketball.
Well,
roommates,
yeah.
I call roommates.
You guys go ahead and you enjoy all that free time that you get between games and after games, okay? Don't be jealous of what we do. Trust me, it's absolutely insane. I'm still recovering. Gentlemen, thanks for the time. Appreciate it. Good luck to your Wolverines tonight. We'll catch you guys later.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Get my microphone in there. There we go. Mike, Matt Snyder and Mike Rejniak joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk to another team that maybe is a deep dive, certainly worth looking into. Endicott men's basketball playing really well right now. We'll talk to them coming up. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that. A lot more.
Sure, the game is important. But as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. And in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
Responsibility is being accountable for your words and actions, first and foremost. It also is an obligation to be a positive influence in the communities around you. Being in a D3 program, you're going to have lots of different opportunities. You're not just an athlete, you're also involved in student life. Your academics are extremely important. We give a lot of our student athletes responsibilities right from the start by giving them leadership opportunities, by having them engage in the community, be a positive influence. That's being a responsible person.
There are over 480,000 college athletes. Only 2% would go pro. That means over 470,000 will not get a shoe contract. No autographs. No private jets. No fan clubs. No Hall of Fame inductions. Instead, they will walk away with something much more valuable.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC1927. That's NABC.com or NABC1927 on social media. Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. You can interact with us on the information scrolling at the bottom of the screen. I said when we came back, we'll be talking to Endicott. I got myself ahead. Anybody you can read our tote board in the back, our whatever you want to call it, can see the order by who we will talk to guests. And obviously Endicott's at the bottom. So we'll talk to Endicott later. But first we're going to talk Trine men's basketball. And the MIAA is a certainly interesting conference to watch this season. One that will keep everybody probably on pins and needles, because if there's a time of the year or a time to finally get really good in this conference, it might not have been this one, because it seems everybody's good. Calvin's good. Hope's good. Trine's good. Albion's going to be a beast. Well, I wanted to learn more about the conference, but from a suspect we don't normally talk to. We talked Trine men's basketball, who's up to 11th in the latest top 25 poll. Brooks Miller joins us on the Hoopsville Hotline. Coach, thanks for taking the time to join us. Really appreciate it. Congratulations, because you guys are playing some good basketball right now.
Thanks, Dave. Really appreciate you having us on the show. So, and one of the teams you left out there, we got to play on Wednesday. We got to go up to Elma, and they're playing some pretty good basketball themselves and had a pretty good non-conference slate. So we're looking forward to that challenge on Wednesday night.
No, good point. Absolutely. We'll talk about that one and the challenges ahead in this conference in a bit, but let's back up a tad. 12-1. to start the season. Wins over Hanover to get the season started. You got a win over Baldwin Wallace and Ohio Wesleyan and Heidelberg and a revamped Stevens point by a point. You only lost to Elmhurst, a really good team, by 7. Got a win over Barry, who's been in the mix in the last few years. Got a win over Platteville by 12, a team that's also in the top 25. You're coming off of back-to-back conference wins over Kalamazoo and Olivet. That is a really good start to the first half of the season, Coach.
Yeah, thanks. We started out there with Hanover down at Mount St. Joe in their classic, and they put a lot of pressure on you in a lot of different ways. And I felt like the schedule that we've had so far, different teams do a lot of the same things that some of our teams do in our conference. Kalamazoo's fantastic at cutting to the basket and running the Princeton style point series offense. The physicality we faced with Stevens Point and in Platteville is very similar to Hope and Calvin. And then just a lot of different teams like Heidelberg with the speed and athleticism that we had to try to match and on the road. Those were tough road games. We went through a stretch there where we were at Anderson. Them and Hanover will probably fight it out for their conference. And then we turned around and went to Elmhurst 48 hours later. And what a well-coached team with Coach Baines and a lot of older guys. So we felt like that it was a battle-tested schedule, but as you know, those are choices that we made back in December and November to execute and make the decisions and the plays we had to make to win those games. But they start all over again on Wednesday when you got the next one. So it's nice to have those 12 wins, but really we're just trying to get one more and play as well as we can and execute and practice and look forward to one at a time.
Well, as you said, you got some variety there. You got some different looks. You got some different styles. That's not only going to help you in conference, which may not be as diverse, but it's really going to help you should you continue to play out a conference into late February and into March. You're getting those varieties, those styles, those different looks, and more importantly, your guys are going through a lot of different experiences that'll get them ready for almost any game between now and the end of the season.
And we're still really a work in progress here. I know a lot of coaches are going to tell you that, but we have, out of our 8 guys, our top 8 guys in a rotation, 4 of them are new to the program. Now we're all pretty familiar with one another, having both Fred and Cortez Garland from Albion come over here and join us this year. We knew in Division III in recruiting, it's always unique. You're just recruiting the best players you can possibly get, whether they're out of the portal in a transfer situation or they're the best freshmen in the region that you're trying to bring into your team. We knew that having the opportunity to see those guys in the portal and how well coached they were and being so familiar with them, and Drew Moore, who played at Olivet with Coach Hargraves, guys that come from really well coached programs we thought could fit in right away, and they've done that for us. And then we've just recently, Jace Cusack, a freshman for us from Lakewood up near Grand Rapids, has got into the rotation and done well. So we're still trying to learn a lot from each other. I'm really proud of the way we've shared the basketball. We're averaging 16.3 or 16.5 assists going into Saturday's game, wherever we were at. And Cortez had last year off. Drew Moore was off last year. Hayden Jones, who played with us 2 years ago, took a season off. So he's been a big part of what we're doing. He's injured right now. But we've had some guys that have had some time off and really coming together and really proud of how hard they have worked off the floor of really being a team. And you can kind of see that on the floor.
Yeah, you hit a bunch of what I wanted to tap on, which is great. The fact that you have a core of a team that's there, you're adding to it like a lot of schools are in different ways, and you're getting contributions from a lot of different places. By the way, quick note, you mentioned assists. You guys are 19th in assist to turnover ratio in Division III at 1.4. You're 46th in assists per game. You're 20th in blocks per game at 5.3. You're 11th in field goal percentage at 49.5. You're 5th in steals per game at over 12 per contest. Turnover margin, you're almost 7 turnovers to the good. You're 6th best in the country there. You've got a lot of these little details with a group that's half familiar with the program and half maybe not, that's really coming together and doing things well both offensively and defensively.
Yeah, we have, I think if you look at our scoring, we have 6 guys that are averaging in double figures, and I count double figures. I think we have 2 guys that are like 8.8. So we got about 6 guys that are in that area, can get you double figures. And then the 7th one, Nate Tucker coming off the bench, our first 2 conference games is averaged in double figures, our first 2 conference games. So the more we share the ball, the more, that ball has energy. So we really preach those things. We run motion offense. this year it's more about spacing and getting it side to side and looking to attack the rim. But we knew we had to get faster in the offseason. We were 22-4 last year, but we really had a hard time scoring the basketball. And we thought if we could get some speed and understand how to get the ball up the floor and actually convert on some of those turnovers we were creating, we could shoot a higher percentage. So field goal percentage was a significant key to our success this preseason that we emphasized over and over again in shot selection and what we were trying to accomplish. We lost Emmanuel Magnanglo for 5 games there in December. But when we had him, he was averaging over 4 blocks a game. And we were also averaging, I think at the time, 14 steals a game. So steals and blocks are really unique when you're talking about creating turnovers, because those are their own outlet passes. So we've got a lot of high percentage shots in transition based on our ability to really challenge shots at the rim, especially when Emmanuel's with us. And also when you get those steals, they're like runouts. And I think we were getting anywhere. When I was a graduate assistant at Texas Tech, Coach Knight used to talk about the best play in basketball is 1-on-0. And when you get those blocks and you get those steals and we get 4 or 5 1-on-0 baskets a game, that's a significant number.
No, that's good intel, to say the least. You say 6. I go by 5. Anybody who's about 9.5 points or more, I consider double figures. 9.8 for Aiden Smiley. Drew Moore's at 10 points. Fred Garland at 13.5. Brent Cox also at 13.5. Cortez Garland at nearly 16. The last 2 listed as seniors, the previous 3 listed as juniors. You mentioned Emmanuel Magnanglo. I could do that in my head, but I can't do it out loud.
Yeah, Magnanglo.
Yeah, it's the extra N that's throwing me off. He's a senior at 8.2 points, but you said 3.6 blocks. But also great shooting percentages from a lot of them. Nobody I mentioned is shooting worse than 45%, going back to that point of having such a good shooting team at 49.5. It's one thing to do it on the defensive end. You're outscoring your opponents by nearly 12 points a game. It's another, though, you got to do it on the defensive end and offensive end. You're doing it, it seems. Okay, we talked 13 games in. Good results. Now we pivot to the conference. They know you well. How do you keep all of this going in the right direction?
And that is the challenge. We have a lot of great coaches in our league. I think one of the unique additions a couple years back was having Coach Saul go from Northern Michigan to come down and coach at Calvin. Coach Saul coached me and was my assistant coach at Hillsdale College, and also on that staff was Coach Hargraves, who coached me all through college, and he and I worked together, and we all worked for Coach Ed Dalma, who was a legendary national championship coach at Calvin. So we're all very, very familiar with each other. And Coach Mitchell now at Hope, being there over 10 years, and we're all very familiar with what works for each program. And I think we all tweak and make adjustments each and every year. Coach Saul brought so much physicality these last couple years that we knew we had to try to space him out a little bit and get a little bit faster in recruiting. Coach Mitchell, I thought a couple years back after we won in 2021, we won the championship. He did such an incredible job revamping how Hope ran their offense, whether they did it on purpose or not. It sure felt like that way. And I always had so much respect of how the changes they were willing to make from one year to the next. And then they had winning the championship that next year in 2022. So I think we kind of really, we really improve off each other. We make each other better in the challenges that we present to one another as coaches, as programs. And ever since I've been here at Trine for 13 years, Hope, Calvin, Albion, those were the schools that were always up top. Those were things we tried to learn from, things that we did here at Trine with the MTI Center. We looked at Hope, we looked at Calvin. We wanted to make sure we had one of the most first-class facilities in the country for small college, not just Division III. With Albion and Coach Turner and what Coach May's been able to bring there, they're winning, their style of play, their guts, their toughness. Those are things we wanted to take elements from each of those programs to try to build what we have here at Trine. And in the last 5 years, we've been fortunate to see some more success than we did in the first 8. But I think moving into the MTI Center, it was almost like getting a whole new job, going to a different program, and the administration, the commitment they've had to our success here. Being able to win 2 championships in the last 5 seasons and finishing second in 2 of those other years, that I think, it's not just a single decision that's made. It's a uniform way of running a university. It's our janitor, Jeff Beam, who's here every morning, making sure we have everything we need to be on the floor as soon as we can. It's our president, our cabinet, everybody that wants to see us win. Coach Land, the expectations we have for men's basketball aren't any different than any other sport that we have.
Yeah, Will said, I was going to bring up the fact that for years, this has been the Hope Calvin Conference on the men's side. And right now, you're tied with Calvin at 12-1 overall, 2-0 in conference. Hope's tied with you at 2-0, 10-3 overall. Alma and Adrian are a game back at 1-1. Then it's Albion, Kalamazoo, and Olivet. Olivet's the only one not with Adrian's 3-9, but everyone else is reasonably at about 500 or better. This conference has improved. We're talking about the Adrians. We're talking about the Almas. I mean, we've seen some incredible NCAA tournament runs from some of these schools. A lot has changed and been better, and that's made the competition certainly better, but it's also got to pull your hair out a little bit. You got a great team here, but you got a Calvin team who's absolutely come out of maybe the ashes a little bit to resurrect its program, and Hope is going toe for toe. You can't win this easy.
And that's what I think what I'm trying to get at is I think we've all had to elevate to keep up with one another. So this is what you get when you have a conference like this. When you set the bar so high, it's really competitive in recruiting, because in the end, that's where it happens. And we can sit here as coaches and talk about X's and O's or our culture is this. I love guys talk about culture. I mean, to me, what is culture? Culture is respect. Respect your opponents, respect the officials, respect your teammates. If you do all those things, more than likely you're going to be on the same page and you understand what's got to be done. I think the respect that we have for one another, whether it's us versus Kalamazoo or Olivet gave us everything we could. We had to handle to win on Saturday here at home. Coach Hargrave's led team that's extremely tough. But I think that, we make each other better, and that's what we got to do to continue to do. And like I said, we're taking one practice at a time, one game at a time. And hopefully when they add them up at the end of February there, we're right there in the mix.
Hey, let's talk quickly about the schedule ahead. Interesting enough, you'll play 5 of the next 6 on the road, if I did that correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, 4 of the next 5. Yeah, I knew I got it wrong. 4 of the next 5 on the road. You'll play 5 of the next 6. I had it right. Alma and Albion. A lot of A's in this conference, on the road. Then you'll be at home against Adrian, then on the road against Hope, Calvin, and Adrian again. This is a tough stretch. You'll get the benefit of it on the back end when you'll end up playing 5 of your last 6 at home. But this is a tough stretch back into conference play. You want to get those wins on the road if you can, certainly. But is there any added pressure because you're going to have so many of them in the first half of this conference swing?
I don't think so. We got to play the games. They're on the schedule, whatever order they're in, whatever. And I think Bill Russell said, if it's on the schedule, might as well go win it. So we're going to prepare like we would if we played them all in a row or if we played them every other one. That's just kind of the way things worked out this year. And like I said, we're locked into Elma here on Wednesday, and that's all we're really thinking about right now.
Talk to me about Alma. What are you expecting from them? This is a team that obviously you know well because you've been in conference play with them, but they're 1-1. They're a game behind you in conference play, 7-6 overall. A team that has obviously had a rich history. Mike Fitzpatrick has done seemingly pretty well, and they've had a tough schedule themselves.
Well, every time, I'm not saying I'm burning the bushes out here in recruiting. I think I work pretty hard. I do what we need to do, us and our staff. But every time we're somewhere, I see somebody from Alma. They're out there recruiting their butts off, and he's done a great job putting this team together and building it up from where it was. They put a lot of pressure on you all the way up and down the floor for 94 feet. They got some great players that he's brought in there. Connor Riley leading the way and doing a lot of things for them, but they're developing guys too. Colton Meister's a 6'6", 6'7" kid. I think I haven't really looked at it. I just know he's a big kid. He's leading our league in block shots, I believe. And he can really score with his back to the basket. I got a chance to watch him early on when we were preparing for Heidelberg. They beat Heidelberg at Wheaton in the first round of the classic that they have at Wheaton College. So that was my first introduction to them, really putting a lot of pressure on Heidelberg, who I think is one of the best teams in our region, if not, the best in their conference over there. So we're going to have our work cut out for us driving up there tomorrow night. I know, nothing really changes with our practice schedule. We're going to focus on shot fakes, pass fakes, jump stops, and finishing cuts and setting up screening angles and everything else. But it's going to be a great challenge for us, and they're coming off a loss against Hope, so they'll be ready.
I need you at my son's practice. His coach is great, but a lot of what you just mentioned, I sit on the sideline going, they need to work on that. They need to work on that. They got the pump fakes down. They've got those. Just need them to work on some jump stops and some other things. Before I let you go, I never got a chance to ask you, how much has the MTI Center changed your, whether it's recruiting or your game or whatever it is, how much has that been a game changer for Trine?
Significant. Not has it just changed, you know what you're investing in here. One of the really unique details about the MTI Center is it's a basketball only floor. So our guys are able to come in here during the season and get individual workouts in whenever whenever we're able to do that within their schedule. So we can be very efficient with their time and their schedule. And in the off season, they're able to come in here on their own. We have a weight room here that's right next to the locker room. We have a film room that we spend a significant amount of time as a staff with small groups, with individuals, and obviously the collective unit when we meet to discuss certain things we want to improve on in that day. But I think it's really changed who we are, but it really represents what Trine is about. Trine University from top to bottom is about excellence. It's about providing opportunities for students, whether they're student athletes or not, at the highest possible level. The leadership that Dr. Brooks initiated here 22 years ago, the way he was able to galvanize our board of trustees with this vision is truly remarkable. And now with Dr. Shannon in charge, taking over after Dr. Brooks retired last year, nothing has changed. So it really represents how we feel about every student that walks in here, that we're going to provide an experience for them that's first class, second to none.
Well said. Appreciate the perspective. I'll talk to you a bit there, maybe longer than I anticipated, but it was so great to hear from you and get the ideas of what's going on. We've talked to your women's program several times. I've been itching to talk to you guys, and I'm glad I finally got the opportunity, Coach Miller. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who might be tuned in?
Yeah, and there's probably 6 or 7 that aren't watching the Michigan game right now. But I appreciate you having the show on tonight and inviting us to represent our program. We have some young men that are working really, really hard, as I know many programs do across the country. It's going to be an exciting time here, no matter what your record is. If it's 1-12 or 12-1, the best thing about basketball is you always got a shot. You just got to keep working and keep improving. And that's something that we keep talking about with our young men is, what do we got to do to get better today? What can we do that other people aren't willing to do that makes the group better? And I just appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for coming on. It makes our jobs a lot easier. Well said. Love what you hear. I love what we heard from you. I'm going to actually enjoy maybe going back and listening to this a little bit more in detail. Good luck the rest of the season. Can't wait to see how this all plays out, and we'll look forward to catching up with you down the road.
Thanks, Dave.
Brooks Miller joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. Can I pivot? We'll go talk women's basketball. I did get the order out of screwed up. Millsaps is actually coming up next, not Hardins-Simmons. We'll talk to the majors, and the new top 25 for women is officially out. We'll talk about that as well. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. Back after this.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
Coach of the Year, Administrator of the Year, All-America Team, Wade Trophy. The WBCA doesn't just honor coaches, but players, administrators, and much more. The WBCA strives to honor those who have contributed to the advancement of women's basketball. Celebrate the present, honor the past, look to the future.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was scared and shy. It was hard to look at people's faces. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. I made friends and won lots of gold medals. But I learned more than just playing golf. Special Olympics helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Division III allows you to give yourself to other things.
Having that free time allows me to pursue the things that I want to pursue.
Division III athletics affords students the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport.
It allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
We are calling you, all of you. We are calling all Division III schools to join our cause.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division III. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, as we continue on this Monday, the 8th. Reminder, also later in the program, we're going to talk about the upcoming NCAA Convention. We'll also talk about some other things that are going on in Division III, but more importantly, we'll talk about the upcoming schedule, because remember, Thursday show is actually going to be live at 1 p.m. this week, and we're going to have a handful of Thursday shows that are going to be a little different. I'm still trying to figure out when we're going to do the marathon. That one's up in the air. I got to talk to some of those who can give me some wiser advice than my own brain that plays devil's advocate with me. Women's top 25 is out. NYU picked up another first place vote. They now got 18, though they're only 16 points ahead of Transylvania for number 2. Those two have been lockstepped at 1 and 2 the entire season. The only time they weren't was preseason when they were flopped. Rhode Island College continues to stay in third. Hold on. Let me rephrase that because that's the old poll. There we go. NYU at 19 first place votes, picking it up from Transylvania, who had now 5 first place votes. Now there's a distance of, 18 plus 6 is 24 points between the two. Rhode Island, Whitewater, they stay in the top 4. Christopher Newport slid up to 5th. Emory, Gustavus, and Hope slid up a spot. Scranton moved from 5th to 9th following their loss to Elizabethtown last week. Illinois Wesleyan has moved into the top 10. Watch out for the Titans. Hopkins is now 11, having been 14th. Wartburg has stayed at 12. Catholic moved up to. Hardins-Simmons is up to 14th. Bowdoin up to 15th. Amherst fell from 10 to 16 following the loss that they had. They got kind of handled. We'll talk about that in a moment. Smith's at 17. Milliken moves from 11 to 18. They're in a bit of a slide. Amherst, by the way, their loss was to Middlebury. That's right. Milliken's in a bit of a funk. We'll check that in a moment. Whitman's at 19. Mary Hardin-Baylor at 20. DeSales at 21. Stout fell from 17 to 22. W&L is up a spot to 23. Oshkosh and Wash U are back into the poll. Milliken has lost 3 of their last 6, losing to Carroll in overtime 101-98 on the 9th of December, lost to Hope on the 20th 77-69. It was a really good game. And then lost to North Central last week 84-78. They've got Wheaton and North Park ahead of them at home. Team not in the top 25 but got my attention because I'm kind of fascinated with how they're playing is the Millsaps women out of the always venerable SAA that will look very different next year. So joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline to talk all about it is Justin LeBlanc, the head coach of the Millsaps women's team. And Coach, I'll start with the fact that enjoy the SAA the way it is. You all decided to bring Trinity, Texas in, who right now I think's a little bit ticked off. Might not have been the smartest move you all have made.
No, we're all kind of sort of maybe excited about Trinity and Southwestern coming back toward a little bit towards east with us and joining us here in a couple of years. Not next season, but the year after. Yeah, right. You're right. It is one more year. For some reason, I thought they were in their last year this year. You're right. It's for 25-26, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So they got one more year. 13-2, Coach. Your 2 losses at the start of the season to Huntington, 67-66, then lost to Mary Hardin-Baylor, a pretty good Mary Hardin-Baylor team. We'll talk a little bit about them coming up when we talk to Kendra Whitehead out of Hardin-Simmons, but they're one loss on the season atop the ASC right now. You're coming off of back-to-back wins in conference against Birmingham Southern, Sewanee, and Center. You got to be pretty thrilled with how this season's progressing, considering we're 2 years removed from a tough 9-15 campaign.
Yeah, the girls are really playing well.
started last season, getting 19 wins, and we had an 11-game win streak last season. We graduated a few seniors, but we brought a lot of our core back this year and got a couple of freshmen that are playing a good minutes. Had a tough one out the gate at Huntington on the road, and then went on a little bit of a streak. Fortunate enough to raise some money and head up to New York and play a couple games. Got to play Williams for the first time in a long time, and that was a battle and a close game. And then had Mary Hornbill on the ropes, but it shows why they're a top 20 team, and they got us and pulled it out right at the end. But they're a really good team. I expect them to be in the top 25 all year for sure.
Are you surprised with that resume that you've got here with wins over Williams? Actually, already both wins over Birmingham Southern. Great scheduling there, if I do say so myself. Get them done and dusted, maybe before they close by accident. 2 wins over Centenary, a win over St. Thomas, a win over U Dallas. Are you surprised you're not getting maybe a little bit more attention in the top 25, or can you see kind of the flaws in the resume, as it were, that only gets you 5 votes total?
Yeah, I'm surprised a little bit, but hey, we're used to it. We're only can play who's kind of next to us. We were fortunate this year to be able to go up to New York and play some out-of-region opponents, but there's not many D3 schools that are in a 3-4 hour radius of us, so we can only play who's around us at times. And this year we're lucky enough to win some close ones, but also to go on a little bit of a streak. And we had a battle on Sunday with a really, really good center team. That was a big. They were picked preseason number 1 in our league, and to beat them at home was a big win for us. So that was always a battle. Wendy does obviously a phenomenal job up there. So it was a good way to start conference play with 3 wins. We got a tough weekend coming up here soon too, though.
Yeah, I think the 2 games against Centenary and 2 games against what we should point out is going to be a new name, Mississippi of Women. Quick note, I forgot to mention it earlier.
Yeah, I think they announced it today. They did.
They literally just announced it today. I'm trying to remember where the heck I posted it so I could find it fast. This is a botch on my part. Mississippi University of Women will change to Mississippi Brightwell University. Whatever that is. I didn't read the release. But obviously a couple of doubles in there that maybe caught somebody's attention. But again, you're into the conference play, a big win over Center. That's a huge win. The trick is you got Rhodes coming up next. Yeah. We're catching in the sandwich here of 2 beasts of an SAA game. And I know you don't want to overlook Hendricks. Oglethorpe is always a tough team. Mm-hmm. We're right back in the grind, as it were.
It is, and then we have 4 in a row on the road, starting at Rhodes on Friday. So we know it's going to be a tough stretch, and all we can do is what everybody else is going to do is take it one game at a time and do our best to prepare for Rhodes. And we've had some battle over the years, and I know Coach Rogan, my old teammate at Millsaps, is not there anymore and moved on to John Hopkins, but his old assistant Judy has stepped up, and I know she's going to do a phenomenal job there. And they have some really good players, and we're going to have to play our best basketball to win up there. And after that, Hendricks is always going to be prepared. We lost at Hendricks last year, and so we know it's going to be a battle when we go back there as well. And then we got to drive 6 hours east to go, and Barry and Oglethorpe is always going to be some tough games, and 4 in a row on the road. It's a tough league. We're spread out. I mean, our closest game is 3.5 hours away in league play. So it gets a grind during the year, and the girls are tough, but it takes a toll on them mentally and physically to kind of get on the bus every Thursday night or Friday morning. And, we're leaving Friday, the day of the game, and taking the bus with the men and going to go to the gym and play the game. So those games are tough, but it is what it is. And, we're built like that, and hopefully we can get it done on Friday.
Quickly, before we jump back into the team, we did talk about Trinity coming in with Southwestern for 25-26. One thing that jumps out at me was the SAA was basically formed out of the old SCAC. You guys were the eastern side of the SCAC. And the idea was, we're tired of making this trip, probably also tired of playing Trinity. And eventually you pushed DePaul out. I'm joking. I know that's not exactly how it worked. But there was a reason behind it. Now Trinity and Southwestern coming in, you talk about the travel. You're now adding a flight, I would assume, even though you're at least on the outlier. You're not as outlied as they are. Mississippi to Texas would not be an easy drive. I've done it. So I'm assuming that's a flight. We're almost going back to where this SAA was formed to get away from. Is that a little surprise to you, especially in this day and age where purse strings get tighter?
It is and it isn't. I mean, it's becoming so. The old SCAC, when I played at Millsaps and graduated in 06, we had the Rolls Holmans and DePaul and Trinity and Southwestern, and we added a few more schools and win divisions, and then eventually split up. And Trinity and Southwestern have been in the SAA in football the last few years, so yeah, it's kind of like a natural thing, them coming back towards it. I think the main thing was like all the presidents that voted a long time ago are no longer here, so it's all new presidents, a lot of the new schools. So when those topics comes back up, those are the decision makers. It kind of is what it is. Coaches, we're going to play the games that we're dealt in conference play and kind of go with it from that. But yeah, we're lucky. I say lucky. We may fly, but we're 9 hours to San Antonio and 9 hours to Danville, Kentucky. So we bust those trips all the time. So that's what more than likely that's what we'll keep doing.
Yeah, that's right on the line, isn't it? And by the way, you nailed it with the presidents. People talk even about the conference my alma mater's in, Landmark. It was formed as a certain way, and now when Wilkes and Lyco came in, everyone's like, well, that wouldn't have, that's not how they would have thought about it when they created the Landmark. Well, the presidents who created the Landmark are no longer in the Landmark. So, yeah, absolutely agree with you. It's amazing how those things change. Let's get back to your team. As always, a team that's full of talent amongst a lot of classes. You don't have as much senior leadership as at least on the roster sheet, as a lot of teams we've gotten used to at this point. You've got 2 seniors. Most of this is juniors with a whole handful of freshmen as well. How's that balance working out for everybody?
Yeah, it's been good. The girls buy into what we do defensively, kind of where we start, and we've always kind of been up there defensively. And they play hard. We do have obviously a junior that's leading us in scoring, that's doing a lot of good things. And hey, when somebody can get back-to-back 30-point games in conference play, it's going to be a lot easier on the coach to help out and win games and stuff like that. But we do have 2 seniors that have been through it. It came in those COVID years, and Helena Rowe has been probably started every game since she's been in Millsaps. She may not be one of our top scorers, but defensively she gives us a whole lot, leads in block shots, and we play a zone defense and Hudl in. She not only block shots but altering shots and rebounding and stuff like that. So, and then Maddie Howell comes off the bench when we need a big shot and does that for us. But we do have a big junior class, and obviously Haley is the kind of centerpiece of that. And, she does a lot of scoring, but she's always up like top 5 or 6 in rebounds, top 5 or 6 in steals. She's up there in assists this year as well. So she's kind of a do everything type of player for sure.
Yeah, just for the record, she's got 20.5 points a game, shooting 50% from the floor, 5.7 rebounds. She's got the second most assists on the team, second most steals on the team, second most blocks on the third most blocks on the team. Elise Warren is your second leading scorer at 10.7. She's a smidge under on a double-double with 9.4 rebounds. Garland Freeman's also got 9 points a game, 6.5 from Whitney Novak, 6.3 from Helena Rowe, and we could continue to go on. But obviously the 20.5 stands out for Franklin. That must mean a lot of doubles and even triple teams for her to deal with. Where does a team fit in terms of those second and third options and understanding that they've got to hit those shots to free up her to get her shots too?
Yeah, a lot of teams have been zoning us. We've seen probably more zone possessions on going up against zone defense than we have all of last season so far. But that just gives other people opportunities. Elisa's averaging close to double-double and playing under 20 minutes. So that makes me look like a fool. Like, hey, why are we not playing her some more minutes and stuff like that? So she's being incredibly efficient in what she's doing. Garen Freeman as a freshman coming in as our second ball handling scorer. I think she's topping the conference in assist to turnover ratio right now, or 1-2, something like that. But we have some opportunities from girls to make some shots. We hadn't been shooting great from the outside so far this season. Here in the last 3-4 games, things are starting to turn a little bit for us, and that's obviously given us a much better chance to win some of these games and protecting us from when teams kind of sag off and look to double Haley and kind of go that route, or go a little bit more packed in zone defense to kind of stop some drives. And
again, on the road for the next 4, Rhodes is the start. You were talking about their team and their coach. We certainly saw them out in Las Vegas. I think they got surprised by a really good Occidental squad who thumped them in the final game by 21 after they beat a really good Laverne squad by 20 themselves. I think Judy does have a good team. They've got some fierce weapons on them. How do you think you match up with them?
it's going to be a battle. And, in Judy's credit too, they haven't been healthy. They're missing one of their cornerstones, and she may be back on Friday, but she hadn't played yet this year. And Taylor Dupree, who led our conference in block shots last year as a freshman and was defensive player of the year, and she hadn't played yet. So Rhodes is only going to continue to get better this year. We know they have a lot of size. They have an all-conference point guard in Avery Marsh. That's going to be tough. And, I think our girls are ready. They beat us pretty bad at their place last year. We beat them pretty good at home. And then we battled in the conference tournament in a close game in the semis last year. So I know it's a big rivalry. It's our closest conference game. So Millsaps and Rhodes has always been a rivalry game. So I know we'll be up for it, but so will they. And it's on the road. So it's just kind of is what it is. And it's going to be who's going to limit the mistakes and make the most basketball plays at the end of the day that's going to get the win.
From a general sense, is this a learning year to take advantage of everything next year with the talent that you have? I know you want to take advantage of what you have in front of you. Don't get me wrong. If you got a chance to win a conference championship, get in the NCAA tournament, you take it now. But is there also a little bit in the back of your mind knowing, hey, we're growing still. We're still developing as this unit. We're going to really learn from all this and maybe be in an even better position next year.
Yeah, I mean, that could be the case, but that conference tournament has eluded us here in Millsaps, so we know we're putting all our eggs into going, hey, we're trying to get the highest seed possible, maybe even host the conference tournament. And you got to take things, kind of as it is. And we've been really lucky. We've been injury-free all year, and, you never know what stuff can happen with stuff like that. And to talk about Rhodes again, Anaya Lagarde's coming back from an ACL tear in the NCAA tournament almost 2 seasons ago. And you just never know when things like that happen. And, our girls are ready. We're playing well as a team. Our freshmen are bought in. They're giving us some good minutes off the bench. I think we're prepared. So we're going to worry about next year, but we're ready to go right now. And we're looking forward to this weekend.
Uniqueness. You guys got the Hangar Dome. I mean, it is a cavernous building. I've watched on a couple live streams sometimes and just chuckle. But at the same time, it's got one of those classic D3 feels to it. On the flip side, you go to Oglethorpe and you disappear into the black hole that is their unique floor. Just the uniqueness of these arenas that you guys get to play in. I mean, Center's got a pretty cool one themselves too.
They do. Somebody always asks questions about ours, and it's like, if somebody came and say, hey, I want to donate $10 million and reinvent it. I was like, I want to keep the Hangar Dome. I want to update the bleachers maybe and things and do some updates, but I want to keep the Hangar Dome the way it is. I love that place. I got to play in it a long time ago, and we won a lot of games when I was the men's assistant there and hosted the NCAA tournament back in 2008 there, and won a lot of games as the women's head coach here. So I love that place. It's a tough place for visiting teams to come. So we've only lost one home game in the last 2 seasons. I'd love to keep it the way it is.
I don't blame you a darn bit if you're having that kind of success. And again, it's one of those classic places that just you got to go see and experience and enjoy. And if it's working for you, I agree. Maybe the bleachers need some updating. I think you fill in a few more too. Don't have them staggered. Fill in the holes. Hey, really appreciate the time. Thanks so much for coming on, especially with us running a little bit behind. Can't wait to watch some more majors basketball. I know you're pretty proud of your alma mater and doing really well as head coach. So tip of the hat, to say the least.
Appreciate that.
In the meantime, we always give the coach, guest, whomever, the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuned in?
Yeah, I appreciate you having us on, Dave. I appreciate you doing this, even though we know a lot of people are watching the national championship game tonight. But
quit telling them.
Like a lot of them, our D3 schools out there, our girls are playing hard and doing things the right way, and we appreciate and giving them a little bit of love.
Absolutely. Well, I think they moved up the championship game to 7:45 kick because they were worried that Hoopsville was going to take the crowd. So I appreciate you coming on. I'll let you get back to the game. Good luck the rest of the season, and we'll keep tabs on you, obviously, the rest of the way, and we'll look forward to catching up with you down the road.
We appreciate it. Thanks, Dave.
Take care. Justin LeBlanc joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. I don't know what championship game he's talking about anyway. The only games I know of are in March. We'll take another break. When we come back, we'll head down to Texas, and we'll talk Hardins-Simmons, women's basketball, another really good team playing some really good basketball. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. Back with more after this.
The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC1927. That's NABC.com or NABC1927 on social media.
Something I discovered in myself is that if I have a goal, I can accomplish it.
It's a well-rounded experience.
At a Division III school, you primarily a student athlete, so the school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual.
It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all. It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
These are your teams, your players, your community of fans. This is where they play, where they practice, where you cheer. At every meet, every event, every game. Your community is passionate, dedicated, supportive. You know the tension of a close game and the thrill of the win. So while you're cheering, keep an eye out for anything out of the ordinary. If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
I learned a lot of valuable lessons playing college football. I never thought about the health benefits of exercise until I actually started to talk to coaches in college. It's not only just for performance, it's for life. My coaches instilled the importance of well-being, not only building up strength, mental health, getting enough sleep, eating properly is all what it is to be healthy. I decided that I want to go into personal trainer and share my knowledge that I obtained in college about physical and mental well-being.
For the love of the game, but for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you got questions for us, the information's on the bottom of your screen, how you can interact with us. Email hoopsville@d3sports.com. You can find us on social media pretty much at D3Hoopsville at every one of those locations. You can also, though, on Facebook, find us at facebook.com/Hoopsville. We are live simulcasting the show on Facebook, on Hoopsville and D3Hoops. We're also live simulcasting the show on YouTube.com, youtube.com/D3Hoopsville. New top 25 is out, as we mentioned, and Hardins-Simmons has moved up to 14th in the latest poll. Kendra Whitehead's team is 12-2 on the season with losses to East Texas Baptist and to Emory. And they've got a stretch ahead that is pretty good for them. 4 in a row at home, but it starts off with the conference leader at Mary Hardin-Baylor, a team that is a game ahead of them in the conference standings. I talked to Kendra Whitehead earlier today to discuss exactly what she expects and what has happened already with the season, and so much more. Join us on the Hoopsville Hotline. It's the head coach of Hardins-Simmons. It's Kendra Whitehead. If you're looking at our screen, we don't have a ranking on there because we're recording this at a time, and I don't want to put the wrong ranking on there, should it change when the new top 25 comes out. Coach, congratulations. Great start to the season. Really, we're at the midpoint here, so it's not start anymore, but good point at this point. From your vantage point, without diving into wins and losses and all that, from your vantage point, how's the team doing? How's it feel? How's the season going along?
Hey, Dave, thanks for having me on. I love every chance I get to talk about the Cowgirls. These girls are usually the best part of my day. They're awesome, and they come in and they work super hard. So I guess from the perspective of how the season is going, we've had a few bumps and bruises, but we're playing really well. And as you said, we're past that halfway point. So this is definitely the point where you have to play well night in and night out in order to have success. And as you know, our league is super, super competitive. I think one of the things that our team is facing right now is we feel like we have the giant target on our back. So we have all of these fifth-year seniors and a team that's gotten some national recognition as of late, and we are playing everybody's best game every time we step on the court, which is great for us because it challenges us in a way that we need to prepare and be ready to play our best game night in and night out, which is that's just a good thing for us too.
Yeah, you gotten some SCIAC teams into the schedule. Granted, they came out to Texas, which was nice, instead of necessarily always having to go to Southern Cal to play them. So you got a taste of them. You've also gotten a great overtime win against Trinity, Texas. Obviously, the conference has been a challenge on top of that, as we mentioned. So you've got a little bit of variety there, too. And then a really big game against Emory. Granted, it was a loss, but again, good points to test the team, get them ready for a potential March as well. So the first half of the season had a lot of variety, is really.
It has. I was really excited through the scheduling process when we were able to get some people that we haven't played. Often we just sit here and play the SCAC and drive all over Texas, but we were able to play the California schools, and then even George Fox flew out here, and we've not seen them. And then to go to Georgia and play a couple good teams out there, of course, Emory is so well known and they're so strong this year, but what a great test for our team, that was coming right after Christmas break. And that's a place where I really like to have a couple of games because it gets you back in the flow, gets you ready going for conference play. And they were such a formidable opponent a certain way. And, when you've coached any number of years, you look up and at the end of the year, you're going to recognize that it totally morphs and changes throughout the entire season. So it's always interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, I agree. Lost a little bit there for anybody wondering. We have a little quick edit, but got Coach back. Got most of what you had to say.
Okay.
Yeah, again, Piedmont in there, and George Fox and Emory, certainly good challenges. Also back-to-backs, again, stuff you compare. Now you pivot back into conference play. Already gotten through conference action so far. You're 5-1 in the first 6, sitting a game back while tied with McMurray behind Mary Hardin-Baylor, who's also having a great season. Again, this is a conference that's full of good teams, especially at the top, and you're going to get right out of the gate playing Mary Hardin-Baylor in the next one. After getting the win over McMurray by 6. You got East Texas Baptist coming up, who you've lost to. So the test is immediate. There's no layoff going back into this ASC action.
Yeah, that's what this conference has been for several years. I feel like since I've been at Hardins-Simmons as the head coach, it's just been a battle every single night when you step on the floor. Even, we've kind of talked a little bit about Sil Ross when we first got on the call, but they're a tough opponent too, and they're not a counter anymore, but every game matters. And so yeah, we're going to see Mary Hardin-Baylor on Thursday, and then follow that up with next Thursday with the team that we've already lost to in the league. So you have to find ways to be the tougher team, and that starts with practice. Challenged my girls this morning to rise to the challenge, to be champions in everything that they do. And you can get complacent when you win a lot of games. And that's the thing that I felt like the couple of losses have done, is just kind of kept us grounded and help us just to realize, hey, we have a lot to work on. And, we got the win over McMurray on Saturday, but we just literally walked out of the film room 5 minutes ago. And I think our kids realized there were a lot of things that we could have done better and a lot of things that we could have controlled that we didn't control. So as long as you can continue that mindset of trying to find ways to grow and get better and you never really want to peak out. People talk about peaking at the right time. We want to grow all the way through our last game.
Yeah, peaking's certainly a topic that we know well. Teams that look great in early to mid-January don't seem to be the same in February, but vice versa. Just for us fun people, for us on the outside looking in, having some fun, you got the Mary Hardin-Baylor game coming up. You'll also finish with them, so race for the top of the ASC could come down to the last game of the regular season before going in conference play. We'll dive more into the conference in a bit, but I want to learn more about this team. You talked about the number of upperclassmen and the experience you got. You've also got a lot of freshmen on this team, so you got a great teaching opportunity, but it is this senior class that's kind of leading the way, and in a lot of ways, both on the stat sheet and not.
Oh, they're a great group. I mean, they have played so much basketball in their years. So not only are they fifth-year seniors, but most of them impacted whichever team they were on, early in their career. So they've played so many minutes and they play so well together. They do the right things and they say the right things and they lead in the right ways. And I couldn't have asked for a better group. You never anticipate in recruiting how a team is going to come together. They've each been here one year differently. So we have Paris Palmer, who's been here the whole time, and then Sam came the next year, and then Paris Kaiser came the next year, and then Anna this year. So they've not all played together that entire time, but it's so interesting just to kind of see how that all works out. And I've told those younger ones, some of them are having to kind of pay their dues. They're getting, not as many minutes maybe as they would have hoped as, young players coming in. But, I tell them you're playing and practicing against some of the best players in the conference every single day. And so that is what you make of it. And they will help you grow and they can teach you in ways that, even I can't from the sidelines. They're on the court helping you through it and showing you, kind of how it's to be done. And they've been in our program a long time. So valuable lessons for those young ones. But we're really excited just to have their leadership and to continue to allow them to carry our team.
4 players in double figures. I believe at least 3 of them are seniors, or at least listed as seniors. I think only one might not be. I could have that wrong, but Paris Kaiser leading the way at 18.5 points a game, 5 rebounds per contest as well. Paris Palmer, 13.5 points, 7 boards per game. Samantha Tatum at 11.5 points per 4.5 rebounds per game. And then Madison Williams, 10-plus points, 2.5 rebounds. And obviously, all of them, by the way, should hand out assists. Anna Finelli hands out the most assists, but everybody gets involved with that. It is that core group, so it begs the question, does this feel like one of those years you need to take advantage of because you've got so much scoring and so much production coming from a group that likely won't be there next year?
Right, I think so. It does feel that way, and in some ways, I think I carry a lot of pressure with that because they all decided to return for their 5th year, and they could have gone on with their lives and been doing other things at this point. So I feel like I really owe it to them that we got to make the most out of this. And whatever happens, I don't like to lose, Dave, but more than anything, I want it for them. I want them to just have an unbelievable experience and to be able to look back on their time here in their career here and just have such fond memories of it. So yeah, I do think that we have that sense of urgency with that. But like I said, I also think a lot of these young ones will be able to step in when their number is called because they're getting great experience with these other girls all of the time. So it's an exciting time for sure, and I look forward to seeing what they can do with it.
We should point out you've certainly played a lot of players in games, some of them maybe only in 3 or 4 here and there, but you've got a lot of players getting a lot of experience. So those younger players are certainly getting time and getting those opportunities. And in conference, that's going to be important because not only because of the 2 games a weekend mentality, but the grind as well. If you've got games, you can kind of take some breaks and give that experience. I assume you're going to take advantage of it.
Absolutely. I mean, that is huge when you've got a Thursday, Saturday conference schedule, and then just the amount of travel that happens with it as well. So We have been able at times to run a whole group of 5 in, and that has been super helpful when we can kind of platoon sub like that. In some of the closer games, we typically don't sub in that way. And then, man, our games have been strange. Like sometimes we'll play a completely small lineup. Like Saturday against McMurray, it was 2 lineups with nobody that was 6 foot on the court a lot of the time. And then, just kind of as the games go, we play a bigger team. We've got to make adjustments in that way. So I would tell you that we've been more creative this year with what we're doing, really probably than any other time in my career as a head coach. That's
Certainly interesting. Certainly expands their horizons a little bit, throws some curveballs. Maybe coaches aren't ready for everything. I got to go watch some more games maybe and see what I'm missing. You have an interesting advantage right now. You'll play the next 4 at home. The disadvantage is you'll play the following 4 and 6 of the final 7 on the road. Is there also pressure that you really need to take advantage of these next 4 because the last 7 are going to be anything but easy?
Yes. In this league, we've always talked about the importance of protecting our home court because it is a challenge to go on the road. And some of that was kind of a fluke in scheduling. We were supposed to be at UT Dallas and Ozarks, and then they had finals or graduation keeping us out of their gym. And so that wasn't intended to be that way, but, it's just part of the challenges that come with a basketball season and then having games and things over Christmas break. So just something we have to deal with. I think the disappointing part for me about just the scheduling, and which is obviously something we can't control, is that a lot of our home games are happening while our fans/students are not in school, so they're not here. And so we just kind of have to fight through that. We'll have to protect and be our own cheerleaders on the bench, and then just turn around and find a way to be road warriors. And the year 2 years ago when we won the conference tournament, we lived on the road. And so there are some advantages to that. Other coaches even have talked about, hey, when we go on the road, we have their full attention. They're not distracted by being in class, and they have a curfew. They're not staying up really extra late. So as coaches do, we will spin that to use that in our advantage however we can.
No, fair point. I've heard that a lot, where sometimes it's almost better to be on the road in certain circumstances than at home.
Right.
It's kind of a give and a take for sure. We should point out you're on the national committee this year. We haven't gotten that far into it to ask you any probing questions, certainly, and I know you're still kind of learning the ropes, but you also are going to be coming from a perspective where in the last 3 NCAA tournaments that you made, which were in the last 3 that existed, all 3 of them, obviously you were in Texas for because the Texas pod got creative. We've seen some creativity show itself a few times. Unfortunately, you haven't been on the receiving end, and you've been, unfortunately, at Trinity, Texas the last 2. So you're kind of familiar with all that. Do you hope to bring that perspective to the table? Whether you could change something is obviously a yearly thing, and depending on who gets in the tournament, I don't want to dive into that. But do you hope to at least be able to bring that perspective to the table to see if you can at least let everyone understand the dynamics at play?
Absolutely. Region 10 has unique challenges, and that's just part of it. That's part of being in Region 10. And I've had, a few calls with the committee already, and they seem like incredible people, and I look forward to getting to know them better through this process. But they're aware, I think, and some of our discussions have already gone in that direction. I can speak to it now on a personal level, which hopefully will have an impact. But the NCAA and the committee, there are conversations right now about, where should money be invested? Should it be in the adding more flights and having a more creative bracket? Should it be in per diem and allowing more players to travel and be on the roster, since most of us carry more than 15 players? So those discussions are happening, which is really encouraging. I think that Division III NCAA, that improvements are in the works, and people want to make it better and want to have better experiences for the student athletes. So I do look forward to sharing, the honest opinion of it's just a little boring. I mean, I've already played at Trinity this year, and they've played here in the past. So that those pods that get created personally can be boring, but we also know that it's an honor to get to play in the national tournament. We're always grateful for that as well.
We should point out we'll talk more about the intricacies down the road here of this season as well. But thoughts of things changing certainly include not playing a conference main at all in the first weekend, and maybe even avoiding who you've played earlier on or earlier in the season, a little bit further in the tournament, though that's a little bit harder to do. But the ESPN new contract may present a few extra $1 million into the budget too. That could certainly be a benefit. All those things I know are being discussed, and it's great to get your perspective on it as well. The other challenge, though, for all of you is the ASC, the elephant we haven't talked about just yet. The slow dissolving of the conference, it feels like from afar. It's down to basically, as you put it to me earlier, the four Baptist group plus Laterno in this ASC as things in Texas have evolved, period. SCAC changed, and that kind of opened the door, it seems. I know you don't have the answers to this and what the future is. I know this season's nice, but the scheduling for next season and beyond has got to be really challenging with all the unknowns that you just have no idea what you are supposed to be doing.
Right. The first encouraging thing that happened is we did get a commissioner, and we were with that one for a little while. So we had a group of presidents really trying to kind of navigate this without someone really spearheading it. So we are really encouraged by having the new commissioner, and I know that he's working really hard to come up with some solutions. The most challenging part, I can speak for our football staff is, at a point, I know they said they have only 4 games scheduled and for next season. And I mean, next season is right around the corner. My challenging part is I now have to schedule 17 games. And so I'll reach out to coaches, and I'll even put that in my email. Like, hey, I need 17 games, try to make them feel sorry for me so that they'll help us and they'll play and they'll want to come here too, because the problem with needing that many games is that you're going to be on the road a lot. And so that starts to affect classes, missed class time and performance in classes. And there's a fatigue factor there. Now we're going to work really hard to work those trips in when, kids are out of school or at Thanksgiving break or Christmas break and things like that. And we're going to make it super fun. But just from the perspective of trying to find and fill that many games, it is kind of daunting right now.
Yeah, and again, the unknown. I think the other thing I would be fearful of, and I don't know if it is yours, the Baptist group seems strong. We've got Laterno as well, but do you ever worry you're going to wake up and get an email saying somebody has defected and left because they finally just couldn't wait any longer?
I'd be lying if I told you I'd never said that or thought that. So absolutely. And when that domino falls, then what? So, you feel like you always need a backup to the backup plan. And unfortunately or fortunately, that is above my pay grade. So we're trusting that our presidents and our athletic directors are working through these things, and that, we'll get some more news hopefully in the near future.
So if you're looking for some games, especially if you want to go somewhere warm, maybe during the colder months, there's a coach down in Texas, or a couple, 2-3, who are looking for games. Good opponents. You can't say none of them are good opponents. Have you even can't even find the right word, but coordinated is what I'm trying to say, with your fellow schools to say, hey, listen, if we can drag in 2 or 3 schools, they can play at your place today, they can play at my place in 2 days, we'll swap partners. Have you guys been working on those kinds of things?
We have. So I actually called the head coach at Howard Payne when this first got started, because they're now logistically the closest school to us. We still include McMurray, but they're, they may be tied up with conference games. So it makes the most sense to get together with Howard Payne. So we've set up some scheduling games for the first and I think maybe the first week of November that we can play, and then also the first week of December, where some SCAT schools are going to come and play each of us. So that was kind of the first thing that we did. But I'm going to host a tournament following Christmas, and they're going to play us and then also McMurray. So that helps too, having them here in town. So you're right. We're trying to get creative in the way of doing that so that we do get some home games as well.
You mentioned your Christmas tournament. Otherwise, I would have mentioned Vegas to you. You're always welcome out there to the D3Hoops.com Classic. We'll get you games. I promise you that.
We'll get out there one of these years.
We'd love to have you. Well, Coach, I appreciate the perspective. I've talked to you quite a bit. I don't want to take any more of your time, but I love getting the idea of everything, your team, but also the dynamics at play down there in Texas, but also kind of where you are now heading into the national committee. I look forward to catching up with you and sharing notes after you've gone through your first year, because I always enjoy hearing from that perspective of things. As always, though, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who might be tuned in?
First, just want to say thank you to you for all that you do for women's basketball in Division III in general, promoting us and just keeping us at the forefront. It's a great game. It's, pure love of the game. And I've played at this level. I played here at Hardins-Simmons, and I've got an awesome group of girls. Like I told you, we've been super creative this year, which has created a fun style of basketball. We're leading the country in scoring. And even days when we don't shoot the three that well, we end up still scoring 87 points somehow. So it's a lot of fun, but I'm always proud to be the head coach of the Cowgirls. And I'm so thankful for these girls that I get to work with every day. And then I have the best and most supportive family that is always there and always has my back. So thank you to all those people. And thank you for, again, all that you do for us.
Well, thank you, Coach. Yeah, I got a great support system. I know the most successful coaches tend to have the best support around them. Somehow I'm unable to speak by the end of this conversation. Kendra, thanks so much for your time. Good luck to the Cowgirls the rest of the season. Look forward to keeping tabs on things down the ASC, and good luck, especially in the future of the conference.
Thank you so much.
Kendra Whitehead joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline.
Thanks to Coach once again for coming on the show. Great to chat with her. Appreciate her time. Reminder, they've got those 4 games coming up at home against Mary Hardin, Baylor, Concordia, Texas, East Texas Baptist, and Laterno. That's a big 4. Listen, that ASC conversation about what the future there is going to be a big one. I'll be fascinated to see if we hear anything coming out of the convention. I have a feeling some meetings are going to be taking place this week at the convention. When we come back, we'll talk Endicott men's basketball. I promised that earlier. This time, I'm dead serious. They're going to join us coming up. We're going to talk men's basketball in New England. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. Back with more after this. The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC1927. That's NABC.com or NABC1927 on social media.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Back to our live segments. We're going to jump up in New England. We should point out we try and rotate at this point. I don't have it exactly
mastered it as I did in the past, but I think we've settled in. We'll talk to about half the regions or so, because obviously we only have about 4 guests on the show. On one show, we'll talk to the other half on the other show. We try and rotate so that we talk men and women, we talk different conferences, etc. So I think you're going to start sensing the pattern as we go. We're going to jump into New England here and talk about the Triple C Conference, the Commonwealth Coast Conference, which is kind of going through some changes, as it were. On top of the conference is Endicott. They've got a 1-game lead on Western New England and Roger Williams, with Nichols a game and a half back and lurking with the exact same 10-3 overall record. And lo and behold, that's the game that's coming up for Endicott. Kevin Bettencourt's squad is 10-3, as we mentioned. Their 3 losses actually came in the opening 5 games of the season. Lost to Tufts by 15 on the opener, beat MIT and Emmanuel, then Wesleyan got them by 2 before Middlebury beat them by 4. Since then, undefeated. So figured might as well talk to them now to figure out what's going on and understand the team better. So joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline is Coach Bettencourt from the Gulls of Endicott. Coach, thanks for taking the time. Welcome to the show. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on, Dave. Always a pleasure to try to talk about the kids in my program and try to talk about our conference a little bit and get that name out there. I'm really proud of my team right now, and obviously we have a long way to go, and I really think the conference has continued to improve during my time, so always a pleasure to be able to share that information with everybody as well.
Yeah, listen, the conference we'll talk about in a bit. It certainly has improved over time, and it's kind of evolving, continues to evolve. But let's talk about the team. 17 win campaigns the last 2 seasons out. Pre-COVID, you had come off of a 19-8 campaign. You're always in the mix in the Triple C. You guys always have good teams. We haven't seen the 24 season camp necessarily reemerge, but feels like maybe you're building something here this year it's got a little bit of momentum kind of behind it.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, we've been in this position the last year or two as well, where we've been right towards the top of the key, and whether it be an injury or COVID or something's happened. So obviously, you need a little bit of fortune on your side to complete a successful season, and we're obviously hoping for that. But my team's really working hard, and I do think some of the growing pains and some of the ups and downs the last couple of seasons have certainly helped keep us hungry. And a lot of that, I could probably say that for about 5 or 6 different teams in our conference. And a large credit to Nichols is, they've done a great job and kind of put a stranglehold on this thing last 5-6 years, whatever it's been. And we have a lot of really good programs. So, one of us got to break through one of these years. But, Nichols has done a tremendous job of elevating the conference. I like to think we're a part of that during our run, 2016, 2017, winning some tournament games. And every year Nichols is getting in, they're advancing some. So I really think it's ratcheted up the competition and made things better in the league, and really made us all tougher when we start playing a little bit out of conference as well. So hopefully we can try to break through, but every game is its own individual thing, and obviously we got to stay healthy. So
yeah. I mean, obviously health a huge deal as you hit this midpoint of the regular season. Certainly not midpoint just yet at conference play, but yeah, Nichols has kind of carried the flag of the Triple C and carried it well, as you pointed out. But it feels like maybe there were some expectations that were higher this year. They kind of came out of the gate stumbling a little bit. Maybe this is the chance for yourselves or others to take advantage of that, especially a Nichols squad that will eventually be moving on. Right?
I don't know if anything's been official yet.
No, all right. That's right. That's where it is.
Years,
yep. No, brain absolutely froze there for a second. We're waiting to see if they move on. That's right. We kind of are on pause here.
Yeah, we've been adding in our league. I think we just added Hartford as they transition now. We just came from their facility this past weekend and played their game. And I think we have Johnson and Wales joining us shortly here, too, in the next year or two. So I don't know if that lines up with Nichols or not, but, we'll see. I've been hearing those rumors. Same as you.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we've been hearing those rumors. Obviously, had Nichols coach on last year who said that they at least weren't leaving right away. It's certainly been strong about jumping to D2 and taking their ice hockey programs to D1. Yeah, Hartford is in. You are growing. There's been a lot of movement in New England in general. But as you said, Nichols has carried the flag. The conference has gotten a little bit deeper in terms of talent. It's certainly gotten more competitive. We're not jumping the CCC up the NESCAC level by any stretch of the imagination, but it has become more than just an afterthought. It really has become a competitive conference that's fascinating to watch on any given night out there. And I got to assume that's helping not only the fact that it helped because recruiting got better, but I'm assuming that means recruiting's getting better again. Like it's feeding itself.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I got into it's my 10th season now, and the depth of the conference is where I think you notice it the most. I mean, we always had one or two teams that I thought could compete. Our second season, we were able to get in the NCAA tournament, win a game. First time our program had done that. Next year, we get to the Sweet 16. Nichols was in with us. We had an at-large bid that year, which hadn't happened in a long time in the conference. And like I said, Nichols has kind of gone off and running the last 4 or 5 years. But, they're getting in the tournament, winning games. And I do think that's a credit to our conference and getting them, well-tested. And for whoever the representative, it happens to be them, obviously, the last couple of years. But, I got to give credit to a lot of the coaches. We added Suffolk during that time, and Coach Duran's come in and really established another good program in the league. And, coaches are really working hard. I'm seeing them at all these recruiting events. And obviously the players are following that because the effort's there. And like I said, I think the quality of the play is at the highest it's been since I've been in the conference. And I'm hoping we can continue to try to break through nationally and get a little bit more recognition and opportunities to get out large bids. And that's what we talk about every season. So we'll see. We've got to keep working from the, all the way through from 1 through 10 in our conference for that.
And programs on campus are evolving. I mean, football this season, certainly with an incredible campaign and getting a lot of national attention, that I know on campuses can feed the other programs, even if it just means giving them a little bit more confidence that they need.
No question about it. I mean, we went on a 2 or 3 year run in and around COVID where all of our varsity sports were either in the conference championship game or won it. Where we have 21, 22 varsity sports. Football's done a great job. Our men's ice hockey hosted the NCAA Final Four last year. I was out there doing crowd control for that one. We had our baseball team make the College World Series. I mean, top to bottom, Endicott's really, provided us a lot of things, starting with the administration. I could talk about Endicott for days. I don't know if you want me going on that rant, but our whole athletic department, I couldn't be more proud to be a part of it. And our teams, top to bottom, are competitive. And that does challenge them. Our guys want a piece of that too. You see other teams winning. It's something you want a piece of. And, we have great strength coaches. We have great infrastructure to try to produce winning programs across the board. And, we really try not to prioritize sports at Endicott. We root for everybody equally, and we really try to, support one another and make sure all teams are great. And I'm really proud to be a part of a system like that. And obviously we're trying to do our part this year and just keep this wave going because our fall sports had a great start to the season.
Well, again, lost 3 of the first 5. Not
I think
slouching.
the trick is we got to stop scheduling all those NESCACs early on. I don't know. 0-3 against those guys, but we've been
What's
doing
interesting
okay.
is a lot of people say the NESCAC tries to take the easy way out in the opener, and they didn't. They you got a couple, but you also got a team like Tufts, who is clearly better than many anticipated. A Wesleyan squad, you had a really good battle with them, and an up and down Middlebury squad. I think you just caught them on a night they decided to win. They're 6-8 this season. It's kind of an odd stretch going on up there.
Going up to that place is a different beast too. I know some of their results, but playing in that gym, we've had a series with them now going on 9 years, so I know what that game is like, and it's really been good for us. Tufts, I don't want to sound like a know-it-all, I guess, and it's easier in hindsight, but we walked off that court knowing that team was going to be making some noise. They were really impressive in person. Coach Linton's done a great job there. And Wesleyan's Wesleyan too. I mean, we were actually up 14 on a neutral court, and I got to give them a lot of credit. They came rallying back and really executed well down the stretch. But I'd like to think those kind of games, you had even mentioned MIT and Emmanuel, good programs. I know MIT's, got a young team this year and the results aren't there, but I think that's what's helped us get to this point. You try to grow from games like that. And now we're in our league and we got a little bit of a winning streak going, and that's the trick to try to convince our players we're going to continue to grow despite winning. I know that sounds weird, but usually get their attention a little bit more after a loss. And Tufts, Wesleyan, Middlebury, and some of those other non-league games really, showed us some things we needed to improve. And, we still got a long way to go, but I do think it's helped us get to this point.
Well, I was going to say, you've been undefeated since. So, you've won 8 straight, if memory serves, into this point. You've got Nichols, as we pointed out, ahead here tomorrow on Tuesday in a conference game. Before that'll be at home. Then you're kind of alternating home and away games here for a little bit. You'll take on Western New England after that, Roger Williams, then Wentworth, then 2 at home against New England and Suffolk before rounding out the month, I should say, on the road at Nichols. So kind of a bit of a stretch here, and an important stretch. Maybe you don't go undefeated throughout it, but I assume you want to make sure that you get obviously more wins than losses, but you kind of keep your position where you are in this conference. Playing from behind in this conference is tough.
No question about it. This is kind of the last couple seasons where I thought we hit a little bit of a lull, got behind in the standings, battled back in February, but conference road games in the tournament are always challenging. So, we want to try to earn as many of those as we can. The couple of years we won it, they were home games, and that makes a big difference. I don't want to get too much into the history of the CCC, but typically the top seeds are there at the end. They get the home games, and they're the ones representing us in the NCAA tournament. So we want to give ourselves our best chance to host as many of those as we can. But even despite our great start, we're 1 or 2 losses from dropping down into that 4 or 5 range because we got a bunch of teams really succeeding right now. So we're all about to start playing each other, and we'll see how that goes, and jockeying for position as we enter February.
At least a lot of experience when you look at the roster. 7 players who are graduate students or seniors on this team, and that's pretty much your 2 main leaders. You are getting some obviously key contributions from underclassmen as well, but you've got 4 players in double figures. One's a senior in Jalen Echeverria. I think we've heard of Echeverria.
Yeah, that name has
really
been
good
our league for a while. So
yeah, really good player. But you also have a freshman in Eliza Kinney at 15.5 points a game, and then a grad student in Ty Vitko, who we obviously have known as a name at 15 points a game, and then a sophomore in Jeff Hill at 10.5. So while you've got that experience in Echeverria and others, you are getting some really good contributions from some underclassmen.
Yeah, I really do feel like we have some pretty good balance in the league, in our roster, in terms of youth and experience, obviously, and that's going to ring true and hopefully help us during this stretch. But having Jalen, Ty Vitko, and Cam Holmesy back for a 5th year, we were not sure, going into the spring. So it's great to have them back. Like I said, we have really good balance. We have a lot of ability. The key is trying to get everybody on the same page and connected, because we have a great ability to score the ball. And we had a game against Gordon earlier. A kid you didn't even mention, Mark Barrett, went for 20 points, 22 points, something like that. We didn't have another guy even in double figures, and we finished that game with 95 points. So, we really can spread it around, and we have some names that really haven't even had a chance to play that can really do some good things. So, really proud of the roster for all the sacrifice, moving the ball. We try to play an up-tempo motion system, really relies on our players making great pass shot decisions and playing unselfishly. And they really have bought into that. At one point, we were at 6 guys averaging double figures, which was kind of a unique, pretty cool thing. And I give guys like Jalen and Ty, some of those older guys who could easily try to go for 25 to 30 a night, a lot of credit. And really embracing a freshman. Elijah Kinney's a special one. You're gonna hear a lot about him in the upcoming years. He's as good of a player as I've had as a freshman. But to be a 23, 24-year-old grad student and embrace having a new guy come in and take some shots, those guys have been just as much as Elijah's development, because they've really accepted him. And, it's really been a nice balance. We've always been kind of 3-point heavy. And I think this year, between our dribble attack, 3-point shooting, and having some great post play, it's been really challenging for other teams to guard us. So hopefully we can keep that going.
The team averages 85.5 points per game, shooting about 44% from the floor, 34% from deep, and a solid 70% from the free throw line. But I noticed defensively, 76 points allowed, 41 points, or 41% shooting, 32.5 from deep. Is there a feeling going into conference play that you're going to have to maybe tighten up the defense a little bit to give yourself a little bit more of a buffer?
It may not have shown yet, but it certainly is a priority when we talk with the team and have meetings and in the film room. Some of it's our pace. We are creating a lot of possessions. There's been some games we let up 75 to 80, but held teams under 40 from the field, which is, a pretty good number. And we have good depth. So sometimes, we want to create that. And, like I said, we've had some crazy numbers a little bit, 105 and 107 in a game. And the other team's getting in those 80s and 90s. But I really think it benefits us to play at that speed. So, it's certainly something. I think we're trying to hold teams under 70. I mean, that seemed to be a number. And I think when we can hold teams to that, it's going to really put a lot of pressure on them to keep us from hitting that number with our scoring ability. But like I said, long season. We just went down to Hartford, and that game doesn't count in the conference standings yet, but it's 30-25 at the half, and then we hadn't played that kind of game in a while. Went into the locker room, and I thought our guys were really still stayed engaged, didn't get frustrated with our offense, and really kind of bought into the defensive end. And some of our scoring has come from because we do create some turnovers. We have, I think we're averaging close to 10 steals a game, and we do have some guys when you turn it over against us, we have some guys who can really run. So that it does contribute to the offensive end a little bit too.
Yeah, obviously got a lot of games left in conference. As we mentioned earlier, just in the month of January alone, you've got a whole host, plus another 5 in February. There's a lot to play with ahead of conference tournaments. So how do you keep everyone focused? Obviously, Nichols coming up's easy. It's Nichols. Yeah. You're going to focus on Nichols. But after Nichols, how do you get them to appreciate each opponent individually without getting too distracted, but understanding the bigger picture?
Like I said, well, we obviously got to see where we're at the end of this week too, because we can drop down in those standings really quickly. And as much as it might give me some more gray hairs and make me a little older by the end of the week, going from Nichols right to W&E, who eliminated us from the tournament last year and has a great team, everybody back. Just got a first team all conference kid back healthy who missed the first semester and added a Division II transfer. So they got a pretty good roster themselves. So I don't think our guys are going to overlook anybody at this point. We have had some games we've struggled against, teams you might look at their record, and be surprised we struggled with. But, I think that's been good for our guys too, to have to overcome some of that. And then I'll go full circle of what you mentioned with the experience, having 7 seniors / grad students who played in this league and realize how quickly it can turn. We started 5-0 in the league 2 years ago and, ended up in 4th place. So, things can, 5th place even. So things can really change quickly. And I think our guys know that based off previous years. Obviously, every year is different. Every game, we try to make unique. So I don't want to keep harping on that and talk it into existence a little bit. But I think our guys will have the right focus. At least I hope. I think we have a really mature group in that sense. Tend to get a little emotional on the court at times, but we do behind the scenes have a maturity in our approach, and we're really stringing together some good practices and film rooms, and guys have really been getting after in the weight room. So I've seen a little bit different level of intensity since day one there, and I'm just hoping that we can carry that through into I call this the grumpy days and winter break, when we don't have classes and we get on each other's nerves a little bit. But when we do get students back and really get into those exciting times, hopefully we've earned some special games at our place.
Well, it's great to get the insight on you guys. I know it's been a little while since we had you, so I appreciate you taking the time to find us here and chat about the goals. And listen, the Triple C fascinates me nowadays. Not only the growth of Hartford and some other changes, but just the ins and the outs. It's a conference that certainly wasn't what it was 5 or 10 years ago, and I appreciate the insight you can give us to that.
I really agree. And even leaving from Hartford's facility, not that I want to be promoting other programs. I mean, that was really a nice place to play a game, and I'm sure they're going to be a factor as things evolve there. And I really appreciate you giving me a chance to talk about my team. I'd love to mention more names, but I won't bore everybody too much. But really proud of my 3 grad students I mentioned and my 4 seniors: Mark Barrett, Drew Brown, Parker McLaren, and Taylor Yates. Mark Barrett's a starter for us who hovers around that 10 points a game, but he might be our most valuable player when you boil things down with his passing and the things he brings to our team. So I really like the mix we have, and I'm just hoping we can stay healthy, keep it going. And, I hope the whole league keeps challenging themselves, and whoever breaks through here goes on and has a great run in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, there's almost an expectation now that a Triple C team isn't necessarily a first round or even a first weekend walkover.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
No, absolutely. Right? It's a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing is, hey, you respect. Bad thing because when it happens, we're all going to be disappointed. I don't know if you got anything more to add, but we always give the coach a final word. Any final thoughts?
No, and probably like most say, I just would love to, thank you guys again for having me on, give me a chance to showcase our team and our conference. Appreciate all you guys do for Division III. I even talking to the Hartford people this weekend who are realizing how special this level is, and it's because of D3Hoops.com and this show and some of the D3 hoop heads or whatever you guys want to refer to yourself as. But, I didn't really know what I was getting into 10 years ago when I took this job as an assistant at the Division II level. And I fully loved being a part of the D3 community, and it's great basketball. And, like I said, I just appreciate you guys giving everybody a platform to see it. And I really appreciate you guys continuing. I know how much work this is for everybody, but at d3hoops.com, that's the number one click during the winter for me, for sure. And, I know my players appreciate the same.
Appreciate it, Kevin. Listen, we love hearing that somebody from outside D3 loves D3. So we'll take that. We're going to maybe button that up, put that in the promo or something. Make sure that everyone hears that loud and clear.
No, I appreciate it always. And thank you very much. And hopefully I'm talking to you again.
Definitely, Kevin.
Thank you. So.
Yeah, well, thank you. Good luck against Nichols and the rest of the conference. We'll look forward to catching up with you down the road.
Thanks, Dave.
Kevin Bettencourt joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. Great to hear his perspective. Listen, great perspective from all our coaches tonight from around the country. But Triple C is one of those conferences I think you got to watch. I think it's better than people realize. Or I think a lot of people are still stuck kind of in those old times when the Triple C was a one-team thing. Nichols and Endicott and the rest have certainly shown it is anything but. When we come back, we wrap things up. We'll also talk about the upcoming NCAA Convention. Just some notes coming out of Division III there. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3 Hoops. Back with more after this.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that. A lot more.
Sure, the game is important. But as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. And in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
Responsibility is being accountable for your words and actions, first and foremost. It also is an obligation to be a positive influence in the communities around you. Being in a D3 program, you're going to have lots of different opportunities. You're not just an athlete, you're also involved in student life. Your academics are extremely important. We give a lot of our student athletes responsibilities right from the start by giving them leadership opportunities, by having them engage in the community, be a positive influence. That's being a responsible person.
There are over 480,000 college athletes. Only 2% would go pro.
That means over 470,000 will not get a shoe contract. No autographs. No private jets. No fan clubs. No Hall of Fame inductions. Instead, they will walk away with something much more valuable.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC 1927. That's NABC.com or NABC 1927 on social media.
Welcome back, everybody. We're going to wrap up the show here soon, but I did want to talk about the NCAA Convention ahead. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. I'm your host, Dave McHugh. You can always interact with us. Information on the bottom of your screen. Social media, pretty much at D3Hoopsville on almost anything you can find except for Facebook. Facebook, that's just Hoopsville. Also on YouTube at D3Hoopsville there. We're simulcasting on Facebook and on YouTube as well. So there are some scores from around Division III. Not a lot of games. We'll check in on them in just a moment. But the NCAA Convention is taking place this week. It's a little earlier than normal. It's starting on the 10th on Wednesday, and we'll run through Saturday when legislation is voted on during the business meeting on Saturday morning. It's all out in Phoenix this year. We should point out, I believe, I know 2 years from now, it's in D.C. Oh, it's in Nashville next year. So Nashville next year, the 15th through the 18th. Then in D.C., the 14th through the 17th in 2026. And then it's in Anaheim, California after that. So real quick, NCAA Convention has a lot of purposes other than the business meeting. Conferences can get together and meet. Other groups can get together and meet, have conversations, etc. This is why the John Carroll news this week was so important. We were told they wanted to announce that before the convention. That's certainly not taking place. But really, sometimes you want those meetings so that when you meet together as a group at the convention, it's not odd. And sometimes you're going to have to find a way to do it incognito anyway. This is for all three divisions. This is where everything is voted on. When people talk about Indianapolis making a decision or the NCAA making a decision that's not fair to students or not fair to a school or whatever, listen, schools vote on this stuff. Conferences vote on this stuff. This is when it takes place. It's like basically putting Congress together. Division III votes on its stuff. Division II votes on its stuff. And Division I votes on its stuff. Occasionally, like a couple of years ago, when there was a major change in the NCAA, or when there's a new sport that wants to be added to the NCAA, all three divisions will vote. Not together. I think only once I can remember was a full vote done at the opening or at some. Oh, actually, that was a couple of years ago when they did made all the huge changes in the NCAA. They had one vote on a Friday evening, I believe it was. But usually everybody votes on Saturday. They'll just tabulate any of the general votes that have to take place. All right, real quick, so that's what all the meetings take place. I've gone to a couple of them, thoroughly enjoyed them. I'm going to try and plan to go to Washington, D.C.'s. Maybe if we can put some funding together, we can figure out Nashville next year as well. It's a great chance to meet with people, get an understanding of what's going on, and follow things along. Very quickly, here's what Division III is voting on this year. There is not a lot, but a couple of these things could turn into a ton of votes or a ton of proposals next year. The first one is the philosophy statement. They are looking to change the philosophy statement in Division III. This is a bit of a complex thing. I don't want to go too far into it. But basically, the Division III philosophy statement, which is basically bylaw 20.11, if you want to look it up, quote unquote, articulates principles that represent a commitment to Division III membership and shall serve as a guide for the preparation of legislation by the division and for the planning and implementation of programs by institutions and conferences. The current statement consists of 18 principles. The statement has not been substantially revised since 2012. The proposal from the President's Council and Management Council, as I understand it, for Strategic Planning and Finance Committee. So basically, it's the President's Council that's adopted it. Management Council said absolutely it came from the Strategic Planning and Finance Committee. A working group within Division III Strategy, Planning and Finance Committee drafted proposed changes to the current version of the philosophy statement with extensive input from membership. The proposed changes consider elements already contained within the NCAA Constitution. That's what was voted on, the changes to that, while articulating fundamental principles of the division, and would replace the existing philosophy statement in its entirety. This is only the philosophy statement that would be changed. This was proposed by the Middle Atlantic Middle Atlantic Conference and the North Coast Athletic Conference. Amend the proposal to retain the language from the current philosophy. There's also amend the proposal to retain the language from the current philosophy statement. Division III does not award financial aid to any student based on athletics leadership, ability, participation, or performance. It's more complex than this. I cannot dive into all the details. But basically, there's talk to work on the philosophy statement, make it different, change it, etc. If it's adopted, there will be a new philosophy statement. If it's defeated, we just go with the original. If it's adopted, that could have a huge, either way is going to have a huge impact on some of the things, like in football, expanding the conference or the NCAA tournament from 32 to what it's allowed to be had based on the ratios. This is going to be interesting to watch. I can't go into the details here. It's not worth it. And doing a panel was way too inside D3 for anybody. But that's going to be worth watching because that's going to dictate things down the road. There's going to be championships looked at, the structures of championships like football, etc. Moving with football changes that would move it, the Stag Bowl to a January date. Those things will come up most likely next year, which means for any of you out there who are football fans, there's no enlarging of the football tournament until at least 2025. Plain and simple, because they won't vote on it until January 2025 at the earliest. Anyway, a lot of these things and other sports, et cetera, are going to be impacted by this philosophy statement because I've been told that, plain and simple. When we change the philosophy statement, if there's going to be particular languages that change that could impact these other things. So that's why we're on hold. That's also why there's only 4 things being voted on. There's also a talk about changing the amendment period currently between July 15th and September 15th. Membership submits legislative proposals by the 15th. Then between then and September 15th, I'm sorry, I'm getting this all bunched. Membership support can submit legislative proposals by July 15th. That's for the following year. So if we're talking now, you have until July 15th to submit proposals for the 2025 vote. Then between July 15 and September 15, the initial sponsors may amend their original idea, expand them, or restrict or whatever the proposal. Then between September 15th and November 1, additional amendments may be offered to change that proposal. However, only those that further restrict the proposal are permitted. Further restrict the proposal. The proposal by Empire 8 and the Allegheny Mountain Collegiate Conference is during the period between September 15 and November 1, sponsors of the original proposal would be permitted to offer amendments to either expand or restrict the proposal. So maybe they hear back and they get, listen, that's a great idea, but we should do this. Okay, so instead of just tightening up their proposal, they can add amendments that could make it better and expand it. So that's going to be interesting to watch. I have a feeling that one will pass easily. I also think the philosophy statement will pass. I haven't heard anybody that says otherwise, but again, I don't have it for sure. Tennis is looking at changing some things. In tennis, right now they have 10 contests with at least 6 participants to have it count as a contest. They want to change that from 6 to 4. So 10 contests with at least 4 participants. We'll see how that changes. Stunt is back on the table as an emerging sport. This one's kind of a hot button issue if you're inside this topic, because stunt is one thing, acrobatics and tumbling is another. They're literally the same thing, just done differently by 2 different organizations. And there's a debate. Some schools have one, some schools have another. Whether stunt becomes an emerging sport, I don't know where this goes, but in the past, this has been voted down in Division III. We'll see if it happens again. So basically, emerging sport and women's sport recognized by the NCAA intended to help institutions provide more athletic opportunities for women. To stay on the list, an emerging sport must gain championship status within 10 years or show steady progress. If an institution sponsors an emerging sport, it must apply the NCAA Constitution and Division III bylaws, as we all know. Stunt was an emerging sport in Division I and II, but it is not in Division III. So we'll see where this goes. It was voted down last time. This was proposed by the Management Council. Stunt would be added as an emerging sport to Division III. Legislation would kick in, et cetera, et cetera. That's it. That's all that's being voted on in Division III this time around. We'll see how it all turns out. Voting again is on Saturday. I may not tune into it as much as I normally do because some of these things aren't as hot button issue, but this is going to be key to next year. Trust me. this is going to be a catalyst to next year. There'll be a lot on the table in Nashville. The Division III will be talking about, which is one of the reasons I think I will be trying to attend next year's event. Quick look at scores around Division III before we wrap up a much larger show than I intended. In women's basketball, Amherst got back off the schneid. They got the win 70-64 against Rowan. Stevens women defeated Misericordia 49-38. Wellesley got a huge win over Dean 75-42. Bates got a win over Riviera, 87-62. Stockton barely got past Penn State Abington, 46-40. Wells is having a rough season. Penn College beat them 75-25. Wells is 0-11 this season. They have scored 20, 19, 26, 15, 15, 29, 9, 21, 18, 24, and 25 points, respectfully, this season. They are having a rough go of it. I really worry about Wells as an institution. Messiah got past Penn State Harrisburg in women's basketball, 80-65. WPI over Bridgewater. Benedictine played Parkside for some reason. 99-49 win by Parkside. And Husson with big win over Maine Farmington. That was in women's basketball. In men's basketball, Arcadia got past Kings in overtime, 81-72. We were talking about Stevens earlier. Well, they lost by 16, that is, to Misericordia, 83-67. That's a bit of a result. Granted, some of these games were postponed from the weather on Saturday along the East Coast. Riviera beat Leslie, 75-68. Manhattanville over SUNY Purchase, 91-62. Husson over Maine Farmington, 88-80. They continue to win. Wartburg's got a game, but against non-Division III. Husson, by the way, now 13-1. That Warren Caruso's team is absolutely rolling along. All right, that's going to do it for us. We're going to wrap things up. I want to thank our guests from Trine, Millsaps, Hardins-Simmons, and Endicott. Thank you very much to their coaches for coming on the show and their sports information directors for all their help. A reminder, coming up on Thursday, we'll be on it live at 1 p.m. Eastern. I have work ahead of me that requires me not to be able to be available live for the 7 o'clock show. So that will be coming up again on Thursday. So we'll be live at 1 o'clock on Thursday, which probably means we're not pre-recording any of our guests. Quickly looking ahead, next Thursday, that will be the case as well on the 18th. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, 18th, we're fine at 7 o'clock. Got ahead of myself. The 25th will be on at 1 o'clock once again. February 1, will be a 1 o'clock show as well. Same with February 8. The 15th will be the top 16 show, and the 22nd will be at 1 o'clock. So I would say about 2/3 to almost maybe half to 2/3 of the shows coming up on Thursdays will be at 1 o'clock. Again, if you can't see it at 1 o'clock, that's perfectly fine. The archive and podcast will be available for all of you who could tune in. I don't believe I'm moving any of my Mondays. I thought I had one at least coming up, but it looks like all the Monday shows will stay at 7 o'clock Eastern time, so we should be good to go there. Many of you asked about the marathon. I'm on the fence, to be honest about it. The day I was supposed to do it, I now need to work, so that either means we're moving it to another day, say a Wednesday, maybe a Friday. I don't love Fridays for a marathon. I'd rather do it on a Wednesday and then skip the Thursday show. So there's thought of doing that. Monday is another idea. We could do it on a Monday, but trying to schedule that over a weekend is really difficult. I'm not sure I'm game for that, but we'll see. Maybe we will. The other thought is just to skip it this year. I'd love to get your thoughts on that. You're welcome to contact us via social media or email if you want us maybe skip the marathon this year, though. It's usually a good fundraising opportunity for us, so we may still try and do it. But there you go. That's it for us. Want to thank everybody for coming on. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. A little bit of a longer show than we intended, but it is that time of year where there's a lot to talk about in Division III. And I'm sure we didn't get to all of it. I know we didn't get to all of it tonight. Thursday show, we'll go through another 4 coaches. We'll get the guys on. Some combination of Gordon Mann, Scott Peterson, and Riley Zayas will join us on Thursday to talk women's basketball top 25 as well. I don't know which yet, but we'll figure it out, plus some coaches and/or we'll get some more student athletes on the show as well. For those of you who are listening to the championship game, well, listen to us. Thanks very much. If you listen to the podcast or on demand, appreciate that as well. Hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to advertise or sponsor on the show, please do not hesitate to contact contact us. You've been listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. I want to thank the support from the National Association of Basketball Coaches, Women's Basketball Coaches Association, and Hudl as well for their support of this show. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on Thursday again. 1 o'clock Eastern will be our showtime on Thursday. Have a good evening, everybody.